See, I'm starting off the new year good, Greg. See, I'm on time.
Early.
Well, it's better to be early than late, isn't
How
it?
are you, Lee?
I'm doing good.
How was your Christmas?
It was a very nice, peaceful time, and everybody's well, so that's all good, you know.
Good stuff.
And yourself?
Very good. Yeah.
Good.
Well, everyone was sick, but sure, every house
I
was
know,
the
I've
same.
seen that up in Wee Hudson now, and he's doing okay now.
Yeah.
Which is
But I thought there's very few houses someone wasn't sick in.
And you sound a little bit husky deep.
Just a wee bit of a throat in me, you know.
Yeah, it kind of suits you, that.
You
deep
think?
voice. Yeah, it suits the look of you.
Moved into Donald Kavanagh territory.
Yeah, move over, Donald. Anyway, have a good show, all right? Happy
You too,
New Year
Lee. Happy New Year to you. See you tomorrow morning. It's the 9 till noon show at 9 o'clock. Let's get a news update. Michaela Clark, good morning.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Plans to develop an old garage near Dunfanaghy into a microbrewery have been widely welcomed. The green light has been given to transform McElhinney's garage in Portnablad to accommodate the manufacturing, distribution and sale of alcohol. Planning has been granted to Anna McElhinney to also demolish and rebuild the rear of the existing property. Councillor Michael McClafferty Lasca-Hearlock of the Glenties Municipal District says once operational, the microbrewery will enhance the offering for tourists visiting the area.
It's great to the area. It's going to be a great tourist attraction when it's all sorted, and I think it's very much to be welcomed. And then again, it's one of the features again along the Wild Atlantic Way that will no doubt add to the enhancement or another place to go, another venue to see when you're down this way.
The pressure on the health system is going to get worse before it gets better. That's according to the HSE, which has warned it doesn't believe the situation is at its peak yet. The public are being urged to consider all options, such as injury units, pharmacies and GPs, before attending emergency departments. A major internal incident was declared at University Hospital Limerick yesterday, with other hospitals such as Letterkenny University Hospital also reporting very high attendance rates in recent days. HSE Chief of Operations Damien McCallion says a very challenging January is expected.
We don't believe we're at the peak at the moment in terms of the public health projections would show that we're on the upper end in terms of our pessimistic modelling, in terms of the scenarios, but also that we're still got some way to go over the coming weeks to deal with that. So we certainly are going to see a very difficult period in January, and our hospital staff are working really hard to try and make it as easy as possible for patients, as indeed are all our staff in our community and our ambulance service.
The Taoiseach says mistakes were made on all sides in the handling of Brexit. He has promised to be flexible and reasonable when it comes to addressing issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol this year. Leo Varadkar says he understands Unionist concerns that the treaty has made them feel less British.
There was no roadmap, no manual. It wasn't something that we expected would happen, and we've all done our best to deal with it. Again, look forward to travelling to Northern Ireland early in the new year in an effort to find a solution.
A motorist has been arrested in Carndonagh and their vehicle seized. The Buncrana Roads Policing Unit were on patrol in the area yesterday when the driver initially caught their attention as they were not wearing a seatbelt. They were subsequently stopped and spoken to. It then transpired that the driver was not only travelling without a seatbelt but also without insurance. They also failed a roadside breath test, which resulted in them being arrested and charged to appear in court and the vehicle being seized. Weather now wet and windy today with spells of heavy rain bringing the potential for flooding. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 10 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
There's no better time to switch to 48. Get all data, calls and texts for $12.99 a month. And there's no contract, so you're not tied down. Plus, we're powered by 3. Switch and save at 48.ie. Monthly membership, fair usage policy of 200 gigabytes, 5,000 calls and texts and terms and conditions apply. One-time activation fee of $12.99. See 48.ie.
The county's #1 talk show. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. And now, it's time for the talk of the Northwest. The 9 to noon show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, a very good morning. 3 minutes past 9, just turning 4 minutes past 9 on this Tuesday, the 3rd of January 2023. And you're very welcome along to the 9 till noon show. I do hope you had a good Christmas and New Year, and it's the start of a new year. And we're all looking forward to Easter now, isn't that right? The Easter eggs are in the shops already. Why not? That's only in April. But anyway, we'll get the Christmas trees down first. Right, it's business as usual. We're here for you. If there's issues you want to raise, conversations you want to have, get in touch with us. Have you forgotten the numbers since we've been away? 086 60 25,000. WhatsApps and texts to that number, 086 60 25,000. Or give us a call on 074 91 25,000. The team are back, Donna Marie and Caroline, of course, taking your calls. You can email the show, of course, comments at highlandradio.com. And if you want to watch the programme, we're back streaming for another year across our social media. On YouTube, it's Highland Radio Ireland. On Facebook, Highland Radio or Highland Radio News and Sport. And we're also on Twitter as well. And we're streaming on our website, highlandradio.com, for you to watch in browser. Right, let's see what's making the front of the newspapers today. Staff at Letterkenny University Hospital are burnt out due to a perfect storm of overcrowding and under-resourcing that has hit the hospital over Christmas period. The chairperson of the HSE's Regional Health Forum West has said. This is the Donegal People's Press. The HSE has said the hospital has been under significant pressure due to a high number of people attending the emergency department amid outbreaks of flu and COVID-19 in recent days. I think RSV in children, and not exclusively children, also a significant issue as well. HSE advice has been for people with non-emergency health problems to attend their GP or the GP out-of-hours service, but the out-of-hours service has been under strain due to a high volume of calls over the Christmas period, and now Doc has asked those trying to access the service to be patient due to long waiting times. And I think sometimes the delay in access to your GP or at NowDoc really maybe actually worsens when people might have to present at the hospital. A lot of people needing antibiotics, and we're going to be talking about that a little later on, and a shortage of antibiotics, particularly with... I always get mixed up which one the antibiotics works on and which one it doesn't, but I think people's difficulty in accessing some of the non-hospital services meant they ended up in hospital with much sicker children or sicker themselves. But anyway, there's more about that on a national level coming up in one of the national newspapers. The Derry Journal, the President Michael D. Higgins has expressed condolences with the family and friends of Brian Hutton, describing the Derry man as a fine journalist with a reputation for reliability. Mr. Hutton, originally from Aberfoyle, had worked as a deputy news editor of the Press Association and had contributed to the Belfast Telegraph, Daily Mirror and Irish Times, among many other publications over a 2-decade career. He died suddenly on New Year's Eve after taking unwell. He was just 46. Right, on to the Irish Times now. Consider all options before going to hospital, the HSE has warned, and I think for the most part, a lot of us do. I don't think really the hospital is full of people that shouldn't be there. If that were the case, we wouldn't have huge waiting times on people to get a bed, because clearly they've been triage checked over in the ED unit. They've been found to be sick enough, but there's no beds for them. So, as I say, I can understand why they make this appeal, but I don't think people are heading to the ED for the fun of it. I think it's because they feel they've no other option. But the Health Service Executive has appealed to people to consider all options before going to hospital this week in what it predicts will be one of the busiest ever periods experienced by the Health Service. Hospitals are bracing themselves for exceptional pressures from today, the first normal working day after the holidays, and traditionally the day when attendance in hospital emergency departments rise sharply. There were 593 patients waiting for admission to hospital yesterday, more than 3 times the number recorded on the same day in 2022. The HSE said some 333 of those patients were waiting for more than 9 hours. Figures from its Trollygar count show. It's called Trollygar. Again, though, it's sick people that are in hospital, and what's the hold up in freeing up beds? I mean, HSE is asking us to do everything we can. Are they doing everything they can? Do they have the right staff on for discharging at weekends, for example? I don't know the ins and outs of it, but as I say, we'll do everything we can, but we want to be assured, don't we, that the HSE is doing everything it can. The Irish Independent: landlords will be able to write off the cost of buying cookers, fridges and washing machines against tax under plans considered by the government. Housing Minister Darragh O'Brien wants a fair tax system for landlords to encourage more more of them to stay in the private rental sector following a major exodus in recent years. Speaking to the Irish Independent, Mr. O'Brien said white goods such as cookers, freezers and tumble dryers could be deemed tax-deductible expenses as part of an attempt to keep existing landlords in the market and incentivise others to rent homes. The area of tax treatment of individual landlords and what taxes are paid is an area that needs to be looked at, and I would like to see some changes, to be honest, the Minister said. He's sitting on 300 million underspent in housing, remarkably, in 2022. On to the Irish Daily Mail now, and children's hospitals are dealing with an astronomical number of self-harm presentations. Two leading psychiatrists have warned, and this is a great concern to all of us. Consultant psychiatrist Dr. Mary Cannon described the situation as a hidden epidemic being exacerbated by the fact that there are only a handful of adolescent inpatient mental health beds in Dublin. And I wonder what is leading to this astronomical number of self-harm presentations. Young children suffering from anxiety and what have you, and harming themselves. Why are we seeing more of that now than perhaps we had have seen in the past? Or maybe are we getting back better access to figures? Her colleague, by the way, consultant psychiatrist Dr. Michelle Hill, described the mental health issues among young people, particularly those self-harming, as shocking. Dr. Hill said despite all the awareness campaigns and all the well-being kind of education, the rates of moderate to severe mental health conditions, the rates of self-harm and suicidal ideation are not going down, they are going up. So as I say, do we need to look at what we're talking about and how we're talking about it in the schools, perhaps? I really don't know. I don't have a line of thought on it, but there's never been more conversation about it, never more awareness, and yet the problem is getting worse. Why do you think that is? 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000. You heard in the news there, in the Irish Daily Star, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar accepted that mistakes were made on all sides during Brexit negotiations. He also admitted the Northern Ireland Protocol may be too strict. Mr. Varadkar also asserted that the government is willing to be flexible to find a compromise to issues around the protocol. There are fresh hopes that the UK and European Commission could reach an agreement this year over the contentious Brexit deal. The Northern Irish Assembly has not sat since the general election in May 2022, as the Democratic Unionist Party has refused to enter government under the protocol, or until the protocol is changed. But listen, I think Leo Varadkar probably very well intended in this, but I think he's been rather clever as well, because obviously with everything that's happened, Britain deferring the elections to allow space for negotiations, it is clear that the EU and UK are on a pathway to resolving this issue. And I suppose if Leo Varadkar uses more moderate language now, when that resolution is found, it will appear to have his fingerprints on it, which is that's politics, isn't it? But it doesn't surprise me that that's his view at this time. On to the Irish Sun now, and the former partner of a woman found dead on New Year's Day appeared in court last night accused of her murder. Brazilian national Miller Checo, 29, told Gardaí he had nothing to say when charged yesterday with killing Bruna Fonseca, 28. She was reportedly found beaten and strangled in a Cork City flat at 6 a.m. on January 1st. The accused, who is originally from Formiga but living at room 3-5 Liberty Street, appeared before a special sitting of Cork District Court yesterday evening. Detective Garda Porrig Harrington gave evidence of arresting Pacheco in the Bridewell Garda station at 2:45 yesterday. He had been detained there since the discovery of Miss Fonseca's body under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act 1984. The detective told Judge John King, I asked him if he understood the charges, and he replied through an interpreter that he did. He replied, nothing to say. And finally, on to the Irish Daily Mirror now. And a row between two groups of foreign nationals at a hotel housing asylum seekers led to 4 men being stabbed. One victim was left with his finger hanging off in the incident involving Algerians and Georgians. The Irish Mirror has learned the incident at Hotel Killarney in County Kerry on New Year's Day was sparked by a dispute which Gardaí attended around half an hour beforehand. A man visiting from a separate direct provision centre in another county was thrown out of the hotel and left the area. After officers left the scene, the row kicked off again, which led to the stabbings. Gardaí believe an Algerian man in his 30s, one of 5 people arrested, is the main suspect in the incident. A Georgian man also in his 30s was arrested, but is understood to have been later taken to hospital with multiple knife wounds. All right, 086 60 25,000. Your WhatsApps and texts to that number, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000. Right, okay. Now, let us go to the news that the Pope Benedict, the 16th, passed away over the Christmas period. We're joined on the programme now by Bishop Emeritus Philip Boyce to reflect on his passing. Bishop, good morning to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. Now, you would have known...
Thank you.
You would have known Pope Benedict as a cardinal too, and then as a pope. What are your reflections on him and his life?
Yeah, well, I did know him, as you said, both as a cardinal and as a pope. And like all people, I always admired him as an outstanding theologian. You know, he was able to express the deepest truths of the faith in very scholarly fashion, but at the same time he was able to speak to ordinary people in simple language, and the thousands flocked to Rome to listen to him and to his talks and his homilies. Cardinal Meissner, who is an archbishop and a cardinal from Germany at the time, speaking of Ratzinger, he said he was a Mozart in theology. That is, as Mozart was famous for his music, Ratzinger, the cardinal, was a Mozart in theology. He was more clever than 10 professors of theology, and yet he was as pious as a child on his first communion day. That kind of sums up that the different qualities that he had and that he was able to combine in his life. So therefore, I admired him certainly as an outstanding theologian and also a man of faith, I must say, a holy man. Christ was at the center of every day of his life, and he spoke clearly of faith in all his talks and in his studies. And he spoke against what he called the dictatorship of relativism. That is, that there's no absolute truth. The truth depends on what people think at any given moment. And in other words, it follows the ultimate trend and is always changing. But as a cardinal and as a pope, he preached the truth of the gospel. Jesus is the unchanging truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And he tried his best to give that to a secular world that was around him.
Okay.
So
Bishop,
therefore,
yes,
a leader in the faith.
Okay, Bishop Philip Boyce,
Yes.
Thanks for your time this morning. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. We're also joined on the programme by Colin Flynn, Vatican correspondent in Eternal World Television Network News. Good morning to you. Colin, thank you very much for joining us.
Hey, Greg, it's great to be with you this morning, and thank you for having me on.
Now, Pope Benedict leaves a complex legacy, I think. How would you frame it?
That's a great question, Greg, and it's a very difficult thing to do. Even at the moment, we're producing and we're just putting the final touches to the official obituary program for the BBC World Service about Pope Benedict, and trying to condense a complicated and varied life with a lot of characterizations and misconceptions and well-founded accusations. How to condense that into a 25-minute program has proven to be difficult. But he will be beloved by his followers and his fans, who see him, as the bishop just mentioned there, as a great theologian, a teaching pope. And many of them think he will one day be a doctor of the church. His writings were that significant, his contribution to the Catholic faith, and helping people deepen their understanding of the legacy of the faith and the rich tradition of the faith. On the other hand, you have to remember that everyone is always compared, Greg. And here we have Pope Benedict, who comes after the enormously successful papacy of Pope John Paul II, who really came about during the television age when 24-hour news was just hitting the scene. Pope John Paul II was traveling around the world. It was a hugely successful papacy for the Catholic Church. There was a big worry here in Rome. How would the church follow that? Pope Benedict was seen as a natural successor, not because he had the same gift and charism for being with people one-on-one and being on camera, is that his worldview, his theology, his vision for the church very much aligned with Pope John Paul II. Even before he became Pope, he was working here in Rome for the guts of 20 years at a very important Vatican department called the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Its job is to ensure uniformity across doctrine in the Catholic Church across the world. And he became known then as God's Rottweiler for being quite harsh. He made no excuses about being a traditional conservative Catholic, and he was seen fearless in his defense of that.
And that stance that would speak to a lot of people, that is what they want to hear.
Exactly. As I've said a few times in interviews when people have said to me, but what's the legacy? I mean, there is no one legacy. It depends on who you ask. And it depends as well who you have more sympathy for, because the fascinating thing that has developed is we have Pope Francis now, of course, and for the first time in 600 years, we had an almost dual papacy with a retired emeritus pope living within the walls of Vatican City, and then you had the new pope, Pope Francis. And we could talk for hours, Greg, about the theological question of, can a pope even resign? Remember, Catholics believe that, okay, it is a group of men, the College of Cardinals, who elect the Pope, but they're meant to be guided and moved by the Holy Spirit. So if the Holy Spirit picks the Pope, how do you hand in your CV, or not your CV, your letter of resignation to the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, and can you remind us of the circumstances of his shock resignation?
It is one of the last lines I say in my BBC programme that's going out this Friday. We will never probably know the real reason why Pope Benedict resigned. He cited old age. He was 86 years of age, and his personal secretary, Ganswein, who has been with him for years, he said recently in an interview that Pope Benedict thought he wouldn't last another year. He thought that his time on this earth was up. And as he even resigned, when he stood on the balcony of the summer papal palace in Castel Gandolfo, he looked at the crowd below him, and he had told everyone that when the clock strikes 8, I am no longer Pope. The Swiss Guard were standing protecting him, and as he went to retreat into the papal palace, he said, now I'm simply a pilgrim on my last part of this pilgrimage on earth. He went in, the clock struck 8, and the Swiss Guard left because there was no Pope left to protect. But then he lived for another 9 years. He stayed true to his word. He lived quietly in the Vatican. He rarely got involved in church events or church events, and he was only there at the invitation really of Pope Francis if he asked him. But why he resigned, some say that he was overwhelmed by the scandals that were breaking in the papacy. He was a great theologian, a great teacher, but probably not the best manager and delegator. Everyone I've been speaking to said that he didn't surround himself with the best people, and because of that, you had a lot of blunders, you had a lot of gaffes. And then the big thing as well, Greg, is that, of course, for decades, the sexual abuse scandal had been brewing in the Catholic Church. It really broke a couple of years before he went into office, but he was in charge of the papacy, 1.3 billion Catholics, the largest religion in the world, when this was such a serious issue that needed to be dealt with. And I think he found it a bit overwhelming.
Do you think criticism of him for not doing enough to address the sex abuse crisis, do you think that's justified, or is that a fair question to ask you?
Yeah, it's probably not my place to say whether it is justified or not. I think everyone has their experiences and everyone's entitled to their view. I will give you very quickly, because I know you're short on time, from all the people I've been speaking to on both sides of the fence, his critics, his followers, he is, and this is fact, when he was in charge of the doctrine of the faith, it was his job to handle bishops and priests who had been accused of sexual abuse. I think in 1 year alone, the figure is 400 priests he laicized Now, that was a huge deal. 400 priests that had credible accusations made against him. His critics will say that there were many other priests and bishops who were not dealt with. But then you have to ask yourself the question, well, then did he not deal with them because, one, there was simply not enough time to go through all of these cases that were flooding in from across the globe? Two, did he believe that some of the cases that were put in front of him didn't have enough substantial evidence and were not seen to be credible? And then the third option is, was he complicit in the cover-up, which many bishops and priests and cardinals were? It's important to point out that the Munich report was published a year ago, and this stated that when he was the Archbishop of Munich and Frenzheim in the 70s in Germany, they found credible evidence that he knew of 4 abusing priests and still allowed them to continue in their ministry. He strongly denied that, but he did bring about revolutionary reform in the Vatican. But a lot of the survivors will say it was too little, too late.
And finally, given his shock resignation, we have this unique situation, unprecedented, is it, that Pope Francis will preside over Benedict's funeral mass?
Yes, because normally when we have a pope in the chair, you don't have another pope to preside over a funeral. So normally it would be a cardinal that would, maybe the Secretary of State or another high official cardinal that would say the mass. So people were wondering what will happen when Pope Benedict passes away. Will it be a papal funeral? Will it be a state funeral? Because remember, the Vatican City is an independent state. So not only is he the head of a religion, he's the head of a state as well. So now it's believed that he will have the closest thing to a papal mass, although the official spokesperson for the Vatican said that it would be in keeping with his own wishes, which was to have something simple. Now, how you do simple in St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican, Greg, we'll have to wait and see. But no doubt it'll be a beautiful ceremony. It'll be on this Thursday live across the world on television, and there will be thousands of people coming to attend.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know you're incredibly busy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg.
That was Colm Flynn there, who's Vatican correspondent in Eternal World Television Network News. And as you heard there, he's also working on a package for the BBC and so on. 086 60 25,000 WhatsApps and texts to that number, 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 07491 25,000.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook, and at highlandradio.com.
The newspapers are courtesy of Kelly Centra Mountaintop Letterkenny, the C-Store National Large Forecourt of the Year for 2022.
Fly with Loganair from the City of Derry Airport and save up to 15% on 900,000 seats during the big summer sale with promo code SUNNY15, including flights to London Stansted and Liverpool.
Fly with me, I want to take you there.
Book by the 9th of January at loganair.co.uk. Travel from the 26th of March. Subject to availability, exclusions apply. Loganair, for all the times.
For great fuel deals, contact Gortley Sales and Hire. Large sacks and trailer loads of logs. Also briquettes, coal, kindling and gas with free delivery locally. Contact Gortley Sales and Hire in Letterkenny on 9126276.
Hello, Hill 16 Insurance. How can I help you? Up the dubs.
Hi. I am looking for a home insurance quote.
Righto, and what part of Dublin do you live in?
I don't actually live in Dublin.
Right. Do you lease a part of dubs?
What? I'm just looking for home insurance.
Well, you're going to have to keep looking, pal, because Hill 16 is Dublin only.
Get the feeling that your insurer doesn't want you? At Local Insurance, we understand your needs. Call today for a bespoke quote or find us online at localinsurance.ie. Local Insurance, we'll get you sorted. The Local Insurance Network, DAC Trading's Local Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Local Insurance is a tied insurance intermediary of Acorn Brokerage Limited. Acorn Brokerage Limited, trading as Acorn Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Do you need a little extra help staying in your home? At Bluebird Care, we offer a wide variety of QMark-approved personalised home care services across Donegal. And our fully trained and committed staff will always meet your care needs with kindness, compassion and dignity. To get your personal home care assessment plan, visit bluebirdcare.ie or call our care team today on 07491 29562 and bring care home.
Okay, welcome back to the programme. On to it, we welcome Brona Heffernan now. Good morning to you, Brona. Thanks for taking the call.
Hi, Greg, and a Happy New Year to you.
And
thank you for having me on.
Yeah, and you're speaking as an individual, but also as part of the Save Our Beach at Castle Goland campaign. What is the focus of this campaign? Is this another right-of-way access issue?
I'm afraid it is, Greg. It's one that has been ongoing for over 3 years at this stage. We were actually speaking to yourself back in 2019 when it first arose, and it's sad to say there has been no change since, in that the obstruction of the public right-of-way to Castle Goland Beach still continues. I don't know if you're familiar with the Nairn and Portnew area, but we're really lucky. We've some fabulous beaches over there. We have the main Nairn Beach, which is just over 2k long, but then just around the headland, a couple of 100 metres, there's a second beach called Castle Goland, which is also around 2 kilometres. And we know all about the benefits of the beaches and getting out in the fresh air. And to be honest, this is a really great time to be talking about it, because at the winter time, walking the beach and Christmas holidays, people really use it. But unfortunately, there's only one access road into Castle Goland Beach, and we're very lucky in that it is well established. It's a public road initially, and then it goes to a public right-of-way, which is recorded in the development plan for the county, which is the best. It's the only record of public rights-of-way, and it has been there since as far back as the development plans were available. The oldest one available is 1980, but our right-of-way, along with, I have to say, and this is probably a really valid point, Greg, is that it's along with 44 others, and getting them into the development plan gives them a really strong protection. It's the best and only protection, but that protection is only as valuable as its enforcement by the council, and this is where we really have the issue. As I say, we're very happy that it's legally established and protected, but the council have been sitting back, and despite our request to enforce the public right-of-way, and as I say, it was first closed back in June 2019, and within weeks we were onto the council and the campaign initiated, and we have continued, well, as strongly as we can, going through all of the proper channels since. But we're hitting basically a total lack of action from Donegal County Council.
Yeah.
And it's them we're really calling out to do their job.
I mean, it's not for you to sort of make the argument for whomever or whatever is blocking this access, but what is the argument being made to you to restrict access? Is it insurance concerns, animal welfare?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that's very important. It's been blocked by the owners of the golf links, and I have to make a really clear distinction. Nothing whatsoever to do with the golf club and its members, which many of whom are walkers and enjoy the public right of way as well as the rest of us. It's the owners of the golf links who bought it in 2017 and without any interference for the first 2 years, but then in June 2019, unilaterally, initially just placed a lock and padlock on the gate, and then within a week or two of that put a very threatening gate in its replacement, and fencing and so on. Now, all of those actions have been condemned planning-wise and are the subject of enforcement proceedings. But you're asking me why they're doing it. To be honest, I don't know. Obviously, as a commercial concern, they'd like to have, the trophy golf course blocked out from all members of the public, and to have it to themselves. And the sad part about that is the roadway runs at the edge of the golf course, so it doesn't actually interfere with the operation of play. But the beach would be left as only a view, nothing else. Nobody would be able to use it.
And have you any documentation from the council or anything on the record from them as to why, as you would see it, they haven't enforced this legal right of way? I mean, it's 2019 is a long time ago, so there must have been some back and forth. Are the council inactive on it, or are they saying it's complicated, or that it's a work in process? I mean, what is the council? We obviously have inquired for an official line from the council, but I'm just interested in your read on the situation, Brona.
Well, the sad part is that they haven't been really good at coming back to us, Greg. They keep saying they're looking for this, they're looking for that, and they sit on all of the information, but we have actually found all of the information and furnished it to them. And we were getting so frustrated with their performance of their duties that we reported to the Ombudsman. And in responding to the Ombudsman, they did raise a couple of issues which they never raised directly with us. Firstly, they raised the status of it. Now, all legal records are fantastic for it, and this would concern me because other public rights of way in the county aren't as well protected. So that's an issue going forward.
No.
The second one is that they say, sorry, do you want me to go through?
I do. Continue. Yeah, please do. Yeah.
The second one, they say the public road for which the council is responsible, end at the gate in question. Well, that's a moot point because their own freedom of information request, which we got from them, confirmed it runs past it. But it doesn't really matter because it goes from the road to a public right-of-way. The third one then was in relation to the mapping. And at this stage, they said that they hadn't got a map. Now, we're very fortunate, again, because we have great supporters, and through really thorough searches, we managed to locate an 1867 deed, which gives us the map showing the location of it. But it's hard to believe, Greg, that the council have a map and just has a blob of a number where it is, which wouldn't give you the detail. This 1867 map confirms the route definitively, but I find it hard to believe the council don't have similar records.
Well, how did they manage to, in the development plan, how did they manage to label this as a right of way without a map?
Exactly our point. Now, the difficulty for them is that allegedly, because this is what we've looked for the original County Development Plan 1967, they don't no longer have it. Now, in fairness, records mightn't have been as well kept then as they are now. But from 1980 on, there are 44 public rights-of-way recorded and referenced on maps, but not very detailed maps. But we do have the older map which confirms it. Right. I'm sorry, Ben, just the last point you raised, the Ombudsman raised the Ombudsman was health and safety. But we met with the council back in 2020 and they confirmed that they would be very happy to have it, to take the ground into their ownership and to look after all insurance matters, which is good because, I mean, part of their development plan objective is to make access to all of these fantastic amenities throughout the county available. So, I mean, they were very supportive on that.
A lot of these problems are resolved through negotiations and in some cases an alternative access point. Would your campaign group be open to that, if that's possible?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say on that is that there's a process for that, and absolutely. I mean, to be fair, if equal alternative access was provided, that would be absolutely. But and that was, I have to say, mentioned by the Golf Links owners back in 2020. But they were suggesting putting a route through someone else's land, and as checking yesterday, those, you know, the adjoining land is owned by somebody else. They've never ever approached them. So, you know, it seems to us that that's just a spurious effort. To be fair, they haven't come back to the table anyway since 2020.
Right.
So,
I mean, it seems like it's one of those ones in everyone's best interest to try and come up with a solution. Because it's clearly not going to go away. And that's been underlined by the fact that a mobile home has been placed on land at Castle Goland Beach. What do you know the background to that, and what's the motivation for doing that?
Oh, absolutely, and that's exactly it, Greg. I mean, the key motivation for that was to reclaim the public ground. The area on which the mobile home has been placed is the public beach, which is currently landlocked. Pedestrians will climb over around the fence gate and get there, but the vehicular access is impossible. This is the only vehicular access, and the purpose of putting the mobile home there was to highlight that beach belongs to the public and to really put pressure on the council to restore public access. As soon as public access is restored, the mobile home can happily go back out the public right-of-way and leave the beach as it should be. It's a mobile, so it's not going to affect the beach. And that's in contrast to activities that the Golf Links have carried out, where they have, you know, they removed the marram grass from the public beach. That's still not restored. Well, yeah. They put a road on it, you know, for themselves. So it's really to claim back that land and to highlight the necessity to restore that public access to the beach.
OK, well, we'll see how it pans out. Thanks for your time this morning, Brona. I do appreciate it. And, of course, we've sought comment from all interested parties in that ongoing dispute there. Hi, Greg. Listening to the show this morning, and it really interested me as I'm a local in Ardra. Castle Goland is a public beach and we should definitely be free to access it whenever we want. Hi, Greg. Can you check with Donegal County Council to see when they will be able to fix either fix parts of the Errigal Road or fill in the dangerous potholes that have appeared after the recent freezing conditions? I nearly lost a wheel driving to Gweedore last night. Worst section is located on the Gweedore bound side of the road when starting to climb to the highest point of the road. The road was in a poor condition even prior to the recent weather. Thank you. Well, we'll listen again. We'll make inquiries to the council, and I would hope that once they're made fully aware of that, that it's not. They'll send a team out to fill those potholes, you would imagine. Fingers crossed they might as well, particularly before we head into another spell of cold weather later in the week. On the issue of potholes on the road, I hit a deep pothole in Killybegs that damaged my car. All I can say about the matter is that I'm not happy about the incident, and it will cost me in the region of €200 to €250 to repair my car and get my tyres replaced. I'm extremely lucky I can carry out the repairs myself caused to my car. It will be unknown the cost of the work by a main dealer with genuine part replacements for these repairs. Well, you can claim in certain instances for damage to your vehicle. Many people do every year if you hit a pothole. So if I were you, even though you're able to save money by doing this work yourself, I would certainly look that up, because many people do successfully claim to have vehicle repairs done once their vehicle has been damaged in certain circumstances, like hitting the pothole that you talk of. It sounds like one that might apply to you. Happy New Year, by the way, to all of you, and those of you passing on those good wishes on social media. Rosemary, it's good to have you back for 2023. Michael O'Sullivan's also with us. Good morning, Michael. Charlie, a regular viewer, a very happy 2023 to you and yours as well. Beth, same to you. And Anne Brogan also watching in, passing on her best wishes. Thank you very much for that. Right, we'll be back with more on the programme after a quick break.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
The Redcastle Oceanfront Golf and Spa Hotel in County Donegal invite you to their weekend wedding showcase on Saturday 7th and Sunday 8th of January from 11am to 5pm. View the breathtaking ocean suite set up for a wedding. Meet the wedding team, enjoy refreshments and more. Avail of superb offers for weddings booked on the day. See redcastlehoteldonegal.com.
If over the holidays you decide it's time to change your car, then why not treat yourself to a new Nissan in 2023? Make an inquiry on our website and we'll be in touch to arrange your purchase when we return in the new year. We have cars ready to drive away in January, so visit imotors.ie. iMotors would like to wish everyone a happy new year.
In the huge January sale at Watson Menswear Letterkenny, get 2 pair of jeans for €70. Also a selection of shirts, knitwear, jackets and suits half price. Don't miss out on big savings in the January sale now on at Watson Menswear, Main Street Letterkenny, and online at watsonmenswear.com.
Now, a few people celebrating birthdays early in the new year. Please play a request for my beautiful sister, Jacqueline, and her husband, John, from Woodlands. They're looking for a song from Bruce Springsteen. That comes in from Pauline Larkin in Letterkenny. Please wish my best friend, Kathleen Stevenson, in Ramelton, a very happy birthday. Enjoy your day. That's coming in from Martina. And a very special mention to Ruby Druce, who is Donegal's oldest living citizen. She turned 107 on New Year's Eve. A very, very happy birthday to you, Ruby. Right now, the 2023 calendar is out. It's sponsored by the London Donegal business. Tiny Vaughan's behind this, of course, and it's in aid of the Donegal Hospice by Brendan Vaughan of Carragart. And once again, he's done a fantastic job. The calendar is beautiful. All the pictures are beautiful as well. And you can pick yours up in a number of local retailers, or contact us and we'll point you in the right direction. It's a lovely calendar to keep you on track for 2023, and it's in aid of the Donegal Hospice. And again, as I say, it's full of pictures from Brendan Vaughan to keep you occupied throughout 2023. All right, one more quick break to catch up on before we're joined by our next guest.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
We have recycling all wrapped up this festive season. When all the gifts are unwrapped and the sweet tins are empty, remember you can recycle lots at your local recycling centre. Visit brysonrecycling.org or donegalcoco.ie for information and opening times over the festive season. Recycle more with Donegal County Council.
With the ongoing war in Ukraine affecting the cost of energy, many of us are facing a challenging winter. Through Budget 23, Government is introducing a range of supports to lessen the financial impact on families, households and businesses, and will continue to monitor the situation in the coming months to protect those in difficulty. It's important that everyone stays warm and well. But where safe and possible to do so, reducing energy use can also reduce bills. Changes like turning your thermostat down by 1 degree and considering how often you use energy-intensive appliances like tumble dryers can make a big difference. For information on available supports and energy-saving advice, visit gov.ie/reduce your use. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Are you thinking of changing your car? Then look no further than Inishowen Credit Union for your finance. It's simple. A car loan from Inishowen Credit Union means you borrow the money to pay for your car and the car is yours. No hidden fees or balloon payments. Apply online at www.inishowencu.ie or contact us on 074 9361017. Membership of Inishowen Credit Union is open to anyone who lives or works in the Inishowen Peninsula. Loans are subject to approval. Terms and conditions apply. Inishowen Credit Union is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Thinking of a sun holiday this summer with the family? Fly to Alicante, Malaga, Faro, Lanzarote, Mallorca and Milan with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Okay, now the weather forecast for today, and it's just disappeared from in front of me here. I'll get it up for you. I know it's going to be wet and windy today anyway, and as I said a little earlier on, towards the end of the week it's going to get chilly. But anyway, wet and windy today with spells of heavy rain bringing the potential for flooding. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees and fresh to strong and gusty southwesterly winds. Winds with frequent showers tonight becoming scattered by morning as winds start to ease. Lows temperatures of 6 to 8 degrees as fresh to strong and gusty westerly winds moderate later. Right, we were talking about access to that beach just before the break, and you know, there's different points of views on everything. John Gallagher joins us now. Good morning, John.
Imagine my Greg, yeah, I think the owners of that golf club, it's a private consortium or a private individual that has bought it, so therefore it's in essence a private property, and I don't and their wishes should be respected. I think ramblers and hill walkers seem to think they have the God-given right to ramble where they so choose. They have the audacity to trample through private lands. So I'm a farmer, and on occasions I have encountered and indeed accosted individuals that illegal, and in essence illegally entered our property, and I had to remove them. And I don't understand why they think that they, or indeed assume that they can go where they so choose, or on private lands or private property.
But if there is a right of way, to access what is a public beach, it's better to sort it out, to negotiate, to try and come up with some solution, John, isn't it? I mean, they are convinced there is a right of way, and if we start sort of ripping that stuff up, where does it end up?
Well, at the end of the day, if somebody has the finances to purchase a property or purchase a golf club or whatever it may be, and they change the rules, I don't see what the problem is. If their place is private, their wishes should be respected. I think it's unacceptable for individuals to assume that they can ramble where they like. If they are lucky enough to own a front garden or a back garden, they wouldn't want people they didn't know to ramble through theirs. I don't think they would be particularly affable if some stranger walked in their front gate and proceeded to walk out their back gate. So there's in essence a precedent there, and I find as well most hill walkers and ramblers don't own a postage stamp size of property themselves, so they're out for a cheap day. In essence, there's cheapskates that solely want to use a facility that isn't theirs.
Is that not a bit snobby though, John? Is that not a bit snobby in that, right, if you have wealth, you can buy whatever you like and make the rules, and people without a postage stamp of property, well, you know what? You've no access to beaches, or you've no access to this particular walk. Do we really? Is that kind of the society that we want to live in?
I don't believe it's snobbery, or I don't believe it's privilege. I believe that it comes down to respect. It comes down to courtesy. And as I said, if somebody owns a front garden and somebody, a stranger that they don't know, proceeds to walk through it. If you go into a city or a town and you walk through somebody's front garden or go in their front gate and out their back gate, I don't think you would be too welcome, and rightly so. And the owners of that property wouldn't be particularly affable to strangers coming in. So I think when you're in the country, you should respect the wishes of landowners in the country, or indeed farmers or whoever owns property, and indeed any area. It doesn't necessarily matter where it is. You should respect the wishes, and you shouldn't feel that you have a God-given right to proceed and do what you so choose. That for me is a grave lack of respect. It's a grave lack of courtesy, and it kind of speaks volumes of individuals that feel that they can do that. You make reference to privilege, or you make reference to affluence or whatever. I think people that ramble through private property feel that they have the privilege. So
that's where, but therein somewhere we have to find the common ground. No pun intended. You know, if people have the money to buy stuff and do with it whatever they want, they should be able to do so. And then you talked about people who had nothing. They're not looking to ramble around here. They're looking to be able to use what they believe to be an established right of way to gain access to what I presume remains a public beach.
Well, I think if somebody makes a decision to close an entrance or a walkway or whatever it supposedly is or supposedly has been, I think they would have researched it fairly adequately. I don't think they would have done it willy-nilly or would have had a knee-jerk reaction in doing so. I would imagine they would have researched it quite well and felt that they were within their rights to do so. I'm sure there are other areas that those people could go to and enjoy the environment and enjoy the areas that surround them. So I don't feel that somebody that has property should feel or should be forced to be accepting of somebody that they don't know coming onto their property. I find in lots of instances, people that I encountered were simple riffraff that felt that they felt that they had an arrogance. They felt that they showed quite a lot of audacity when I encountered them on different occasions, and indeed seemingly tourist organisations seem to be quite willing to promote areas where there is private places or where there are private places, and again I think that's quite unacceptable also. So therefore I don't basically my point is I don't feel that anybody that owns private property or private lands or wherever it may be in the country, it doesn't matter, that they feel or they should be forced into accepting people they don't know onto their property.
Okay, well, with that in mind, if there is, say, for instance, there is reasonable proof that there is a right-of-way in existence, generally speaking, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the case that we talked of this morning. Do you believe that should be expunged, or do you believe that they should be maintained?
I think that one of the definitions of a right-of-way, Greg, is that a right-of-way, you have to have a specific reason to use that right-of-way, and a genuine reason to use that right-of-way, and you have to prove that it's necessary for you to use a specific right-of-way. I think that's one of the definitions of a right-of-way, that you have to have a necessity to use it. So then again, these individuals obviously will need to prove that they have a necessity to use it, and obviously if they can't prove that they have a necessity, the person that owns the golf club are well within their right to close the place off.
I get you. Okay, right, John. I mean, you're unapologetic in your views. Thanks for sharing them, Okay, that's John's point of view. Ashley, good morning to you.
Good morning, Greg. Thanks for having us on this morning.
No, it's our pleasure. Right, you're from Ardra. You're familiar with this beach, and you're very keen to retain access also.
Yeah, it's probably worth referring back to what Mr. Gallagher was saying there, and that probably the closest analogy is that the people who want to access this beach aren't trying to walk across someone's front garden here. We're actually trying to walk along the pathway that's next to someone's front garden. So the land itself is actually public land, as per Brona was talking about earlier. So no one's asking to walk across the golf course in this particular instance. People are just, hoping to continue to use what basically is yet another area of outstanding natural beauty in Donegal. So it's a beautiful beach. People want to continue to walk on the beach. They're not sort of ramblers and, hill walkers, desperately trying to sort of cause arguments or prove rights of way or anything like that. They just want to go to a beautiful beach that's always been there and they've always had access to.
Yeah.
And there's never once has been an argument with the golf course throughout, the 100 years that the golf course has been there until recently. And what's happened is the new owners decided to close access to a right-of-way and actually reclaim what is public land to prevent people from accessing the beach. That's the only argument that exists. There's never been an argument with the golfers, the people of the area. So all people want to do is continue to play golf and continue to access the beach, and everyone would be happy. I'm not quite sure why the problem has arisen.
I don't know the exact... I know the general area, but it sounds like something that could be resolved if all the interested parties were brought together. I don't know what commitments might need to be made, what indemnity might need to be provided. Who's to say? I don't know. But it seems like very little has happened in terms of trying to come up with a solution. I'm sure everyone will argue that we've tried this and tried that, don't get me wrong, but I'm on about, some sort of a summit whereby this is all thrashed out with the moderator and we come up with some sort of a solution, because the issue's not going to go away. And if I were the owner of this property, I would find this an annoyance. I think I would also want it to be resolved in one way or other. But here we are, 4 years on in the same position, and you've had no access since 2019. Is that correct, Ashley?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I don't want to speak on behalf of the group themselves, but I definitely think that sitting around the table would resolve this, because the council publications show the road towards the gate, and then they show the road or the pathway which goes alongside the golf course that gives access to the beach. So you don't actually walk across the golf course. So surely, the parties could sit down and say, look, guys, we just want this pathway left open. No one's asking tramped across the golf course. There's actually no golf.
I can think of 3 examples whereby there are pathways that run alongside a golf course or actual official walks. Rogie springs to mind in Bundoran, for example, where the walk is literally adjacent to fairways. So I don't think it's obviously danger is not an issue. I don't know what the problem is.
Indeed, that's effectively that's the position of everyone who lives in the locality. Is they can't understand why the problem's arisen, and they can't understand the perspective of the new owner. And a lot of people think he just wants to close it off and then use it as a private beach.
I don't want to speak to his motivation. I would love to speak to the person, because I always, as much as possible, want to hear from everyone, so it's absolutely fair. So I can't really talk, or we can't talk to his, or their, if it's a consortium, I don't know, of their motivation, but we endeavour to try and get those views. I'm not cutting across you, Ashley. I hope you understand. Thanks for your time this morning.
I think it'd be a great idea, and thanks for having us.
I appreciate it. Nick, sorry, we only have a minute. I think a lot of the points that you want to make perhaps have already been made, but Nick, in your own words, you're laying a lot of the blame at the Donegal County Council.
Yes, I think so, Greg. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you.
Yeah, the thing is that I think any reasonable person would say, look, it needs a solution, but what should have happened is that the right-of-way should be kept open until such time as an alternative solution is provided. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. But to say, right, we'll close the right-of-way for years, and then start to look around for a solution, except that actually no looking has been happened, because it's the right-of-way's just been closed and nothing else seems to be happening. But we're of the opinion, well, it should be kept open. If an alternative can be found, well, that's fine. But we'll look at that in the meantime. But keep it open. People, need to get to the beach. And I think from what John Gallagher was saying, though, I was quite surprised at his attitude, actually, that anybody can just come in with enough money and say, right, this road that's been used for hundreds of years, generation upon generation, people have gone down to the beach to get seaweed and that sort of thing. For somebody to say, well, I don't like that anymore, we'll just close the beach off and effectively privatise it. That's not on. I don't think that's a viable way to resolve any problem.
All right, listen, thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate it, Nick. Take care of yourself. Okay, we'll be back with more in the 9 till noon show after we take the news and obituary notices. Stay right where you are.
When you need help with natural gas or LPG appliances or pipes, don't take any chances. Stay safe and always use a registered gas installer for installation, servicing, repair or removal. Otherwise, you're putting yourself and others at risk and breaking the law. Find a registered gas installer at rgi.ie.
Crawford Tiles and More Castlefin. January sale now on. Great discounts in store with up to 20% off tiles, bathware, flooring, plumbing, lights, vinyl and carpet. Job lots on display for sale. Delivery and fitting available. Crawford Tiles and More Castlefin. 914392. January sale now on. Miss it and miss out.
Can I help you, sir?
Oh, I hope so. It's Jimmy here, my budgie. He hasn't made a sound for weeks, so I thought I'd better bring him down here to the vet.
Right.
He used to be so cheerful, chirping away all day. But now, listen, nothing. Is there anything you could recommend?
Maybe try the Specsavers next door?
Lost sounds? Specsavers could help you find them. With qualified audiologists and free hearing aids with PRSI. Book a free hearing test today. Terms and conditions apply. See our website for details.
Sheridan Security, now introducing zero-wire smart alarm systems. Zero wire, zero mess, and a real peace of mind. With a simple press of a button, your alarm can be set or unset, or download the free app and control it from your phone. Call us today on 074 912 6025 and get your alarm from €299. Stay local, stay safe, and protect what you value most with Sheridan Security Systems.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. The pressure on the health system is going to get worse before it gets better. That's according to the HSE, which has warned it doesn't believe the situation is at its peak yet. The public are being urged to consider all options such as injury units, pharmacies and GPs before attending emergency departments. A major internal incident was declared at University Hospital Limerick yesterday, with other hospitals such as Letterkenny University Hospital also reporting very high attendance rates in recent days. HSE Chief of Operations Damien McCallion says a very challenging January is expected.
We don't believe we're at the peak at the moment in terms of the public health projections would show that we're on the upper end in terms of our pessimistic modelling, in terms of the scenarios, but also that we're still got some way to go over the coming weeks to deal with that. So we certainly are going to see a very difficult period in January, and our hospital staff are working really hard to try and make it as easy as possible for patients, as indeed are all our staff and our community and our ambulance service.
Plans to develop an old garage near Dunfanaghy into a microbrewery have been widely welcomed. The green light has been given to transform Michael Hinney's garage in Port Nabla to accommodate the manufacturing, distribution and sale of alcohol. Planning has been granted to Anna Michael Hinney to also demolish and rebuild the rear of the existing property. Councillor Michael McClafferty, Lasky Hearlock of the Glendees Municipal District, says once operational, the microbrewery will enhance the offering for tourists visiting the area.
It's great for the area. It's going to be a great tourist attraction. When it's all sorted, and I think it's very much to be welcomed. And then again, it's one of the features again along the way of Atlantic Way that will add to the enhancement or another place to go, another venue to see when you're down this way.
The Taoiseach says mistakes were made on all sides in the handling of Brexit. He's promised to be flexible and reasonable when it comes to addressing issues with the Northern Ireland Protocol this year. Leo Varadkar says he understands Unionist concerns that the treaty has made them feel less British.
There was no roadmap, no manual. It wasn't something that we expected would happen, and we've all done our best to deal with it. Again, look forward to travelling to Northern Ireland early in the new year in an effort to find a solution.
The Equality Minister says the violence in a direct provision centre in County Kerry on New Year's Day was an isolated incident. 6 people are due in court today in connection to a fight that broke out among residents in Hotel Killarney on New Year's Day. 4 men suffered stab wounds but were later released from hospital. Minister for Integration Roderick O'Gorman says safety measures are being introduced in the centre to de-escalate tensions.
Ensuring the safety and security of the residents and indeed as staff of Hotel Killarney is an absolute priority, and in conjunction with An Garda Síochána we'll be taking measures to ensure that in the immediate term.
2023 looks set to see an easing of house prices in Donegal. The latest report by myhome.ie shows that property prices in the county have bucked the national trend by staying flat during the final quarter of 2022. The average price of a house in Donegal, however, when compared to this time last year, is up €10,000 to €185,000. Joanne Geary, Managing Director of myhome.ie, expects house price inflation to slow.
We're predicting and forecasting that asking price inflation will fall somewhere between 3 and 4% in 2023. So you'll continue to see a steadying of asking price increases. That could be flat in some areas. So, for example, in Donegal, if I look at the last 3 months in Q4, those prices remain flat and steady. You could continue to see that certainly in the first quarter of this year.
A Spanish yellow wind warning has been issued for Donegal. Very strong and gusty southwest winds are being forecast, especially near coasts and over high ground. The warning comes into effect at 11 o'clock tonight and will remain in place until 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. Wet and windy today with spells of heavy rain bringing the potential for flooding. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices for this Tuesday morning, January the 3rd. The death has taken place of Donald Kelly, Dubala Letterkenny. Donald's remains will be reposing at his late residence today from 4 o'clock until 10 o'clock and tomorrow from 12 noon until 10 o'clock with rosary both nights at 9 o'clock. Family time on the morning of the funeral, please. Removal from there on Thursday morning at 10:30, going to St Patrick's Church, Drumkeen for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Agatha Gallagher, née Boyle, 21 Meadow Crescent, Sion Mills and formerly of Strabane, reposing at her home this afternoon from 2 o'clock. Fiona leaving her home on Thursday morning at 10:30 for Requiem Mass in St Teresa's Church, Sion Mills at 11 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Donations in lieu of flowers, please, to the Foyle Hospice, care of Quigley Funeral Directors. Family time, please, from 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has occurred of Catherine Campbell, Curramone, Ballybuffet. Remains reposing at the family home this evening from 7 o'clock. Fiona leaving the family home on Thursday morning at 10:15 for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock in the Church of Mary Immaculate Stranorlar. Interment afterwards in Drumbo Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. Family time from 9 p.m. until 12 noon and on the morning of the funeral. The death has occurred of James Patton, Carn Ballybuffet. Remains reposing at the family home this evening from 7 o'clock. Fiona leaving from there on Thursday afternoon at 1:30 for service of Thanksgiving in St Anne's Parish Church, Monellin, Crossroads, Killygordon at 2 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. Family time from 10 p.m. until 12 noon and on the day of the funeral. The death has occurred of John Kelly, Stragrady, Termin. John's remains will repose at his home from 11 o'clock this morning. Fiona leaving there, going to St Columba's Church, Termin on Thursday for 12 o'clock Requiem Mass. Burial afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time from 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. Donations in lieu of flowers to the Claddagh Ward, University Hospital Galway, care of any family member. The death has occurred of Sean Crawford, Gordon Grace, Castlefin. Sean's remains are reposing at his late residence. Funeral from his late home tomorrow morning at 10:20 for Requiem Mass at 11 o'clock in St Columbus Church, Doneylub. Interment afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member or Charles Lynch, funeral director. The death has taken place of Patricia McNulty, 91 Murlock Road, Glenmornan. Her remains are reposing at her home. Funeral leaving her home tomorrow morning at 9:25 for Requiem Mass in St Joseph's Church, Glenmornan at 10 o'clock. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. The death has occurred of Bosco McGill, Dublin and Ardra. Funeral Mass at the Church of the Holy Family Ardra this afternoon at 1 o'clock, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. Donations in lieu of flowers to the Irish Motor Neuron Disease Association and the Irish Hospice Foundation. Family House private, please. Bosco's funeral mass can be viewed online by the Church of the Holy Family. The death has taken place of Priscilla Rolston, formerly of 39 Prehen Park and Convoy. Funeral service will take place tomorrow afternoon in Rye Presbyterian Church at 2:30, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. Family and friends are welcome to visit Aunt Muriel and William Perry's home, Maharacoran Convoy, today from 2 until 9 o'clock. No flowers, please. Donations in lieu of flowers to Friends of Spruce, Alton Galvin Hospital. The death has occurred of Ellen Quinn, née Sweeney, 8 St Vincent's Close, Ballybuffet. Her remains are reposing at the Church of Mary Immaculate Stranorlar. Requiem Mass there tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Interment afterwards in Stranorlar Cemetery. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Cecil Scanlon, Kilross, Stranorlar. His remains are reposing at his home. Funeral leaving from there this morning at 11:15 for 12 o'clock funeral service in St Junan's Cathedral, Rafo, followed by burial in the family plot in the adjoining graveyard. House strictly private, please, before the funeral this morning. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of desire to the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of Terence McClintock, funeral director. The death has taken place of Rosemary McLaughlin, née Linnet, Montgomery Terrace, Moville. Rosemary's remains are reposing at her home. Family time, please, until 11 a.m. Funeral from her home at 10:30 this morning for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass in St Pius X Church, Moville, followed by burial in Ballybrack Cemetery. Family flowers only. Donations in lieu of desire to the Nazareth House Fawn Patients Comfort Fund, care of any family member. Rosemary's funeral mass can be viewed online on movilleparish.com. And the death has occurred of Denny Byrne, Marine Drive, Killybegs. Remains reposing at his residence from 8 until 10 o'clock this evening and from 11 o'clock until 10 o'clock tomorrow. Removal on Thursday morning at 10:30 to St Mary of the Visitation Church, Killybegs for 11 o'clock funeral mass. Burial afterwards in the local cemetery. Mass will be streamed live on mcmmedia.tv. House private on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only, please. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
It's easier to get healthier this January with the right support. The Irish Life GAA Healthy Clubs Challenge is helping communities get active. Every step you take could help your GAA club win O'Neill's Sports Vouchers. There's €20,000 worth of vouchers up for grabs. Just download My Life, the free health and wellbeing app. Register, join the challenge and start tracking your steps. A better life with Irish Life. The My Life app is provided by Irish Life Financial Services. T's and C's apply. See irishlife.ie/mylife.
All right, you're very welcome back to the second hour of the programme. Good morning if you are just joining us. It's the first 9 till noon show of 2023. Some of your comments coming in off the back of our conversations between 9 and 10. And just to remind you, by the way, Community Garda information on the way with Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh. People of seaweed rights on Castle Golden Beach. Shutting a public right-of-way is against the law and not a matter of negotiation in this way. But if the right-of-way is disputed and maps can't be found and what have you, In relation to tourism, if the council are trying to improve tourism and local economy, then they should enforce the public right-of-way. Anything else is sabotaging an amazing amenity used by all without annual fee, even golfers and their family. There's no need to choose one over the other. Let this community respectfully enjoy this amenity, I beg your pardon, as it always has. Good morning. I just wish they would remove the padlock from the gate at the beach at Castle Goland. When my sister was home on holidays some weeks ago, we tried to go for a walk on the beach but could not get past the gate. We need access restored. Hi, I'm listening to the interview currently as a local user of the beach. I go running from Narren Beach across to Castle Goland, one of the two access routes. It's a disgrace that people are losing access to such a beautiful beach due to this. That comes in from Louise. As a family, we use the right-of-way from a road to Castle Golan on summer holidays and on other visits back to my home. The signs and gates are very off-putting, and kids actually get scared when we try to use it since 2019. Really unacceptable for everyone involved, they say. Was there planning permission for that mobile home? I know people who lost their mobile home due to no planning permission. I'm a member of the kayaking club in Portneuf. Castle Goland is a lovely calm beach for beginners. We haven't been able to get down there for 3 years now. Another hi there. I'm from the area and listening to the interview makes me upset that the county council aren't doing anything, as I used to regularly swim with my family on the beach, and since the gates went up we feel that we can't. And last for now, would the owner have a public liability for users on the beach? They have no option but to not let them on. It's an issue that is concerning to landowners, especially with the price of insurance, and that's why I suggested that perhaps maybe some sort of a... I mean, the public liability, sure, the council's public liability insurance perhaps could be applied, or some solution along those lines. Right, stay where you are. A quick break after the bingo numbers, and then it's Community Garda information.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Tuesday the 3rd of January. You're playing on the brown sheet. The reference number is S2. It's game number 1. The numbers are 50, 66, 33, 78, 43, 3, 64, 80, 81, and finally 12. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
So you're saying mental health difficulties can be smaller things?
Yeah.
Like trouble sleeping?
Yeah.
Or if I'm always stressed, like?
Yeah.
Or often anxious?
They're all part of your mental health.
Thought those were separate.
Nope. They're all connected.
Hey, how do you know all this anyway?
Sure, I've been there myself.
Anxiety, ongoing stress, low mood or trouble sleeping, they're all part of your mental health. Make the connection and find support that can help at yourmentalhealth.ie from the HSE.
Super Value makes saving money as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1, we match Aldi on the products you love. 2, get great better than half price special offers like my What Do You Know Added Sugar Double Concentrate 1 litre range, $1.86. Selected Personal Liquid 24 Wash, $5.49. And 3, money off vouchers every week on the app. Super Value makes saving money as easy as 1, 2, 3.
There's no better time to switch to 48. Get all data, calls and texts for $12.99 a month. And there's no contract, so you're not tied down. Plus, we're powered by 3. Switch and save at 48.ie. Monthly membership, fair usage policy of 200 gigabytes, 5,000 calls and texts, and terms and conditions apply. One-time activation fee of $12.99. See 48.ie.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025.
And you're very welcome along to the first edition of Community Garda Information for 2023. And we're joined in studio today by Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh from the Letterkenny Garda Station. Ewan, good morning to you.
Morning, Greg. Happy New Year to you.
And same to you, Ewan. I suppose before we get into the appeals and information, a busy Christmas, New Year? Or?
Yeah, relatively busy. Big crowds about. Fortunately, in the division, we had no major road traffic collisions, no fatalities on our roads, no major serious assault incidents and things like that. So thankfully things went well for us, and we'd like to thank the public for all their assistance in the matter, and wish everybody a happy new year.
Yeah, and heeding the warnings then, hopefully, or the advice, I think is a better way to phrase it. Gardaí are investigating a road traffic collision that occurred in Fulcara yesterday.
Yes, Greg, this is a collision that occurred yesterday, Monday the 2nd of January, just after 3 p.m. At Devlin, Fulcara. The collision occurred on the Glenveigh to Errigal Mountain Road at the turn-off for Muckish. 2 cars involved. One of the cars had been travelling from Dunlewy towards Letterkenny, and the other car had been travelling in the opposite direction when the collision occurred. The occupants of both cars were taken to Letterkenny University Hospital to receive treatment, and fortunately they're for non-life-threatening injuries. So we're appealed for anybody who travelled on the Glenveigh to Errigal Mountain Road around that time, 3 p.m. yesterday, Monday the 2nd of February, who observed the cars or the collision, or who has dash cam, to make the footage available to Gardaí at Milford 07491 53060, or again the confidential line 1800 666 000.
Now, Gardaí seeking the public's help in relation to an assault in Buncrana just before Christmas Day there.
Yes, this is an assault which occurred on the main street area of Buncrana on Christmas Eve morning, the Saturday the 24th, so been the night of Friday the 23rd, Saturday morning the 24th. At approximately 3 a.m. the assault occurred at. At 3:05 a.m, Gardaí received the report that a man was lying on the street unconscious, and he attended the scene. On arrival at the scene, the male luckily was conscious, and we believe at this stage he received a blow to the head from another unknown male, and again he was taken to Letterkenny University Hospital. So again, anybody in the area who may have witnessed the assault or who may have relevant information, to contact the Gardaí Buncrana 07493 20540. So that's an assault which occurred on Christmas Eve morning, the 24th of December.
All right, the early hours. Criminal damage at Schlieve Road being investigated.
Yes, this occurred last Wednesday week, the 21st of December. So it had been Tuesday night, the 20th, Wednesday morning, the 21st. Around 1:50 p.m, a number of young males caused damage to a car at the Schlieve Road area of Letterkenny. Substantial damage was caused to the driver's door and ignition of a car in the area. So again, we're appealing to residents in the area and road users who may have heard or seen anything suspicious on the date and time to help in our investigation, to contact the Gardaí at Letterkenny 07491 67100, or again the confidential line 1800 666 111.
And on St. Stephen's Day now, criminal damage incident in Lifford.
Yes, this is the Monday past there, last Monday week, St. Stephen's evening at approximately 10 p.m, the 26th of December. Damage was caused to the window of a licensed premises on the Main Street area of Lifford. A male person was refused entry to the premises, and he's proceeded to smash the front window. And again, we appeal for anybody who have been in the area around the time, or who's dash cam, or anybody who has any information, to contact the Gardaí at Letterkenny again 07491 67100.
All right, now some criminal damage at a property in Fulcara over the new year.
Yes, this occurred between 7:30 p.m. last Saturday the 31st and 5 a.m. Sunday the 1st of January, so sometime last Saturday night. Damage had occurred at the Radhack and Errigal in Ballina, Fulcara. The residents in the property had been out socialising for the new year, and when they returned home, they discovered that their front sitting room window had been smashed by a rock. No entry had been gained into the house, but again, substantial damage there. And we're appealing for residents in the area, or anybody who may have information, or if they heard any commotion or witnessed anything, to contact the Gardaí at Milford at 07491 53060.
Right, now, theft of a vehicle. Well, there's 2 instances. We'll start with the incident at Solomon's Court, Letterkenny.
Yes, we're investigating the theft of a white Toyota Vitz, registration number 07D 122983. That's 07D 122983. This car was stolen from the Solomon's Court area of Letterkenny in the early hours of St. Stephen's morning, so Christmas night sometime, St. Stephen's morning between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. The stolen car was located at Kirkstown, Letterkenny on the same date, shortly before 7:30 a.m. and it has been burned out, unfortunately. So we're appealing to anybody who may observe suspicious area in the area of Solomon's Court between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m, or indeed may have seen the car on the road at any time that morning, to contact the Gardaí at Letterkenny 07491 67100, or again the confidential line 1800 666 111.
All right, now another vehicle taken, this time from Chestnut Grove in Letterkenny.
Yes, this was last Wednesday night, the 28th, should have been Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning at around 5 a.m. Gardaí Letterkenny received a report that a car was on its roof at Killyclug. No occupants in the car. It was a white Mazda, partial reg 11D61. 11D61. Gardaí searched the surrounding area in case anybody was injured, but nobody had been located, and the ignition of the car had been tampered with. And we made contact, the guards on duty made contact with the registered owner, and who hadn't realised that the car had been stolen at the time. So it had been parked in the owner's driveway in the Chestnut Grove area, Letterkenny, and was still there at 1 a.m. when the owner was going to bed. So sometime between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. the car had been stolen, driven away and crashed in Killyclug. So we appeal to anybody who have witnessed any sort of suspicious area in the area of Chestnut Grove, Letterkenny, between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. to contact the Gardaí Letterkenny. And again, anybody who may have seen the car on their travels that night are captured on CCTV to provide the dashcam footage to Gardaí Letterkenny, 07491 67100.
Right, now, you might be able to help with this, actually. I was contacted by a couple of people over the Christmas New Year period who contacted their local Garda station. And on doing so, they were then transferred to, a couple of people said it was Galway. I'm not quite sure where they were transferred to, but they were transferred out of the district to Galway in their view to deal with a problem, a local issue, right? Yes. This was non-emergency stuff. And then there was a little bit of a problem in the person they were speaking to really understanding where they were talking about, because they weren't from anywhere close to this area. Has anything changed in that regard? Was that just because of Christmas? Or
No, it's what we called, it's locally we're calling it CAD 2. So we are a pilot area for our CAD system in Garda Síochána, which is the computer aided dispatch. You may be aware that a number of years ago we were relieved of the responsibilities of taking 999 calls locally. So if you ring 999 calls are transferred to trained dispatchers it actually is in Galway, and they dispatch the local units to the calls. And we're now progressing on to this, and Donegal is a pilot area for the CAD2 system, whereby if you ring your local Garda station and you get through to a local guard and your call requires a Garda resource or assistance, you will be transferred to the same office, where a trained personnel will take your call and, I suppose, like you see maybe in a hospital, triage your call with all the other local calls and dispatch the local car accordingly. It's a way maybe of relieving members at desks at Garda stations for other frontline duties. So it's a pilot area in Donegal. So basically, if you ring your local station, you will get through to your local member. And if you're calling, if you're reporting a theft or you're involved in an accident and you're still at the scene, you will be transferred to a qualified person in what we call CAD, Computer Aid Dispatch Office, which is in Galway, and they will dispatch the car to assist you.
Right, and that would apply to non-emergency stuff like there's some suspicious activity or I saw a van in our local area. You know, the stuff we're encouraged to ring about.
Yes.
That also would end up being triaged.
Triaged, yes. If the person receiving the call locally feels that a response is required from Gardaí, as in somebody needs to be dispatched to you or to the call, you'll be transferred to the trained person in the computer aid dispatched telecom system.
Right, okay. So people can get used to that for at least the period of the pilot anyway. Okay. I'm sure there'll be reaction from outside the force to that. People might think it's a good idea or a bad idea. I won't put you on the spot. Right, okay. 2023, we talked about a relatively quiet, busy, but, you know, in terms of very serious incidents, quiet over Christmas and New Year, and hope long may that continue into 2023.
Yeah, I hope so, Greg. And, you know, it's the time for, I suppose, New Year resolutions. We're all talking about eating less, maybe drinking less, walking more, running more, being nicer to our family and our neighbours.
You're talking to.
No, I'm not talking to myself, and I'm not looking at you either. But I suppose we're maybe asking people to take some New Year's resolutions into how their road behaviour. Again, we wish everybody a happy New Year, and we thank yourself, Caroline, and all your team for your assistance during the year. Again, just to let people know that too many lives are lost on our roads, and too many life-altering injuries occur on the roads each year. So maybe if people could make New Year's resolutions into how we behave on the road. First one, of course, we have what we call lifesaver offences, and the most important one for us is to slow down. Speed kills. Numerous research done on the Road Safety Authority website, and the impact that if you slow down by 10% of your speed, the impact that it have if you're involved in an accident. Again, wear your seatbelt. Ensure that your passengers do too. Never drive while under the influence of alcohol and or drugs. And do not use a mobile phone while driving. Again, you can be seriously distracted when using your mobile phone.
And that could be, it's not always taking the calls now. It could be sending a snap.
Yes,
changing
I've
a track
seen it all.
changing a track on Spotify.
Yes.
It's not the old way where it was someone had it up to their ear chatting. This is any interaction with the phone.
Talking to someone seems to be the last thing we do in our phones now. It's everything else is available. And again, ensuring your vehicle is in a roadworthy condition. And I suppose a big one now, this time of year, more people out walking, running, cycling. Ensure that you're highly visible to motorists while walking or cycling. Wear your high-vis vests and take precautions. We hope that 2023 is a happy and healthy year for everyone. And again, we look forward to continue to serving our communities again this year, and again with your assistance on our community radio slot.
All right, listen, and thanks for that. And on that issue with road traffic collisions, a lot of them, most of them are avoidable.
They are, yes.
And that's, it's an incredible loss of life every year, and much of it is avoidable.
Yes. You used to call them accidents.
Yeah.
Now they change the collisions because they're avoidable, and somebody says accidents aren't avoidable, but collisions are.
Yeah, okay. Listen, a Happy New Year to
Same
you
to
and
you,
yours
Greg.
and all in the force. We appreciate your time as always, okay? That was the Community Garda information item. It'll be available for you to watch back on our social media and on the Garda Facebook page a little later on today. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back here on the 9 till noon show.
The Community Garda information slot is brought to you by Sheridan Security Systems, protecting what you value most. Call today and get your zero-wire alarm system from €299. Sheridan Security, 91-26025.
Thinking about joining AIB? What if by changing your bank, you could also change the way you bank? Just what? At AIB, we don't make technology for you to bank. We make it for you to live, with all your everyday banking needs at your fingertips. Joining AIB takes just a few simple steps. Discover how to become a customer by visiting aib.ie. AIB, we back doing. Allied Irish Banks plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
The Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale is now in full swing at their showroom at the Mountaintop in Letterkenny, supplying only the finest quality, luxurious Irish-made beds and mattresses with genuine savings throughout our range. We look forward to seeing you at Restex Beds and Furniture Winter Sale.
Come here till I tell you, Aisling. Did you hear Gary in number 43? He's been going for hours. On the phone all day, streaming, messaging.
Stop the lights, who is it?
On Post Mobile.
Wait, what?
At €18 a month for unlimited data, calls and texts, it's almost too good to be true. Switch today to your local post office or at unpost.com/mobile and get your first month free. Unpost Mobile, for your world. Fair usage and T's and C's apply. Auto top up €18 for 31 days unlimited allowance, otherwise 28 days. See website for details.
Okay, you're very welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Thanks once again to Ewan, Garda Sergeant Ewan Walsh, for calling up there with the Community Garda information. Right, 086 60 25,000, that's the number for your WhatsApps and texts, 086 60 25,000, or give us a call on 074 91 25,000. Really busy actually for the first show of the year with people, I suppose maybe with young ones still off school and what have you. Right, okay. Tom Murray is a pharmacist at Murray Pharmacies. Good morning to you, Tom, and a very happy new year to you and all of yours.
Good morning, Greg. Happy New Year to you and the listeners.
Right. Okay, there's a problem not unique to Ireland, a shortage of antibiotics. Are you experiencing difficulties in getting them into stock, Tom?
We are. I would say it's improved lately in the last week or two, but there was a serious shortage at the start to mid-December, and there may be a shortage again throughout January and February. And you're right, it's not a unique problem in Ireland. It's been an EU-wide and perhaps even global-wide shortage. There's been a bit of a perfect storm of reasons for that, but there's certainly a shortage of common use antibiotics, mainly penicillins, which there's an increased demand for at the moment because of strep A, RSV, and various other winter bacterial infections.
Is there any games being played here? Because a lot of this was predicted. We knew there was going to be a surge in RSV cases. We've been warned about this dual-demic of flu and COVID for a number of months. So, we knew this was coming. Is there any games being played in terms of supply and demand, or wherever this stuff is being manufactured?
No, I don't believe this game's been played. There's been a massive increase in global demand. There's been a huge demand across the full of Europe. Part of the problem has been a delay in manufacture coming out of COVID, because a lot of the raw ingredients are sourced in China and India, and there has been a delay with that. There is an increase in demand, and there is an issue on pricing in Ireland, where some of the drug companies, when they're allocating their drug supplies to different countries, they supply them on a profit basis. Obviously, we're an expensive island to supply. We're a small market, and therefore there is an element of financial gain for the drug companies to supply larger markets first.
Yeah, and as far as you're aware, albeit a struggle, are pharmacists currently able to meet demands?
We do our best to meet demands. There is certain things that we'd ask the Minister to help to intervene with, like the severe shortage protocol. Currently, at the moment, it is taking a lot of pharmacists' time. It is causing a delay for patients, and that's significant, particularly if you've got child antibiotics, liquid antibiotics. You may have a parent in the pharmacy with an upset and sick child, and they're being delayed. And that's something I'm very sensitive to, and I'm not very happy about that there is a delay. We're currently ringing around several other pharmacies, or we're having to ring back to the GP to change the medicine. If the serious shortage protocol was brought in, the pharmacist would be able to say, okay, I don't, for example, have the penicillin that the doctor's prescribed, but using the clinical knowledge of the pharmacist, I have another penicillin that's available that will do the same job, and I would be allowed to substitute that straight away, which would remove the delay. Part of the problem in Donegal, if it's okay, for example, it's not okay. If, for example, I don't have it in my pharmacy in Convoy, but there's one in Rafo or in Castlefinnet, it's not a huge distance to travel. But if the nearest pharmacy that stocks that particular antibiotic is Buncrana or somewhere in the showroom, Donegal doesn't have that infrastructure, we don't have the density. So certainly the severe shortage protocol would help patients and deliver care faster.
Yeah, and you're acutely aware, and I have an understanding of this myself from over Christmas. As soon as a doctor suggests that it's potentially strep throat, and there's been an awful lot of publicity of late. I don't know how much of it was fear porn, effectively, to sell papers, and how much of it is a genuine clinical concern. But there have been a number of deaths. I'm not sure how it is in terms of trends over for last number of years. But as soon as you hear strep, you have those concerns, and then it ends up really that we go to you saying, come here, this could be life-threatening, sort me out, and your hands are somewhat tied then.
They are very much tied, and we may have to say, look, unfortunately, the antibiotic the doctors prescribed, we don't have. Doctors are under massive pressure. They don't have time to be taking calls from pharmacists ring and say, listen, I know this is a really obvious substitution, but would you allow the substitution? GPs are far more important, let's do than that. And you're right, the patients are very concerned when they hear strep A, even though strep throat is extremely common this time of year. There has been an element of an explosion of awareness maybe, and an explosion of concern, but you do see very stressed parents in the pharmacy.
And generally speaking, if you have quick access to antibiotics, even the small danger there is of this turning into a much more serious condition are greatly reduced almost immediately after that. So that's why important, I suppose, to get quick access to antibiotics, because otherwise the hospitals end up having to deal with cases that ordinarily they wouldn't. So it's very much in the Minister for Health's interest to get this, outside of the hospital stream working.
Yeah, and we're not looking for something that's a permanent solution. We're looking for a serious shortage protocol where the Minister recognises and is aware of the shortage of antibiotics and would allow us to put in this substitution protocol on a temporary basis for that element of speed. I mean, GPs don't prescribe antibiotics unless they're absolutely necessary. That's a myth that's passed around. They certainly don't. So when they give it, it's a clinical need, and the sooner you start the antibiotic, the better. So again, if you are faced with a young mum with a child who's upset, and there's all stress, it's far better off if we could have this and we could start the treatment as soon as possible.
I mean, given the fact that the government themselves are announcing pharmacies as your first port of call if you can, I mean, should pharmacies not be given a little bit more latitude, generally speaking, in this regard? Because they're clearly very experienced in what they do. They're clearly seen by government as a very important part of relieving pressure on hospitals. Should we be evoking protocols? I mean, should we not change our attitude somewhat to the work that pharmacies do and can do?
Well, I think there's potential for that. And certainly throughout the pandemic and the vaccination programs, pharmacists have been recognised as being part of the primary care team and have stepped up to the plate and been involved in lots more expanding roles. There is potential for more of that. There's minor ailment schemes involved in other jurisdictions. There's things like that we are talking to the IPU, to the Minister for Health, to try and advance patient care in the community, to take pressure off GPs, to stop people having to go to NowDoc and then referred on to A&E. There is certainly a greater role that we could play to reduce pressure and improve patient care. That's a matter for discussion with ourselves and the Minister for Health that we are working through. And there's a broad range of aspects there, yes.
And just you talked of a potential shortage in the next couple of months. There is some suggestion that it's RSV, isn't it? That maybe that is plateauing a little bit, although there's been a slight spike again lately, and children are going to be returning to school, and we don't know what's the story there. But we aren't in peak flu season. And there are concerns about new strains of COVID. Now, obviously, antibiotics isn't the cure for all of those things that I've mentioned. But do you think that for what people need antibiotics for, that we will have supply over the next couple of months? The government has committed to ramping up its efforts to get extra supplies.
I can't say with absolute confidence that we'll have all of the supplies, but at the same time, I don't want to create panic in the population. So far, we have coped and we have managed, and the patients have been very patient with us and supportive, and they've waited until we could find an alternative supply or another pharmacy with a supply. There was a serious issue in December. There may be an issue again in January and February. As you say, we haven't hit peak flu yet. RSV is plateauing, but there was a peak. If you look at the situation in Limerick Hospital during the week, there is a triple storm of viruses. There's also the fact we've reduced immunity in the population at this time because of the fact that we've isolated for so long because of COVID. So there could be potentially higher demand again in January and February. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to supply all the demand. I'm sure the government are doing their best to do that. I wouldn't mind seeing a greater role being played by the Department of Health in securing and planning for future supply. We have a very, very good primary wholesaler network in Ireland that works effectively. We have one of the most effective medicine streams in the world for supply to patients. Sometimes, though, there's a recognition we're a small market and we could do with a bit more proactivity from the Department of Health.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the problems we're experiencing now too, I wonder what access to GPs is like in Limerick, you know what I mean? A lot of people end up with very sick children in hospital because they struggle to get access to, their own GP or out of hours GP, and I just think there's certain little things along the way, including that extra latitude for pharmacists, that if we did that, we would be doing more to try and keep the pressure off our hospitals, which are acute hospitals. They're there to deal with emergencies. They are designed to run at capacity. I mean, if you had a hospital that was, at 15% or 20% capacity, you'd be wondering, well, what's going on here? There's more you could do. I just would hope that the Department from Health would think about this in a more rounded manner, that's all. I don't know what your views are.
It may be interesting to look at that strategy. Certainly there are a lot of steps that can be taken in all of the primary care pathways before people end up in hospital. We do have issues where people are ending up in A&E unnecessarily on a regular basis. And if you just talk to any of the consultants in A&E or any of the nurses in A&E, and they tell you how much pressure they're under and how long people are waiting. We did have an instance in Letterkenny Hospital where we were cited as being one of the worst hospitals in the country lately. And I suppose I would ask patients to think twice before they turn up at A&E as well. There is an element of panic with certain people, and sometimes that's fed a bit by social media. And sometimes it's fed by other people saying, oh, you should just go straight to hospital, forget about trying to get a doctor. And I would ask people to have a little bit more responsibility in that and not be turning up to hospital necessarily.
Okay. Tom, thanks for your time as always. I really appreciate it. Good to chat to you again.
All right, thanks.
Take care of yourself, and Happy New Year to you and all your family and staff there. Tom Murray, pharmacist at Murray Pharmacies. I'm not contradicting what Tom is saying, but I do believe the majority of people that go to hospital, the majority goes because they feel they have no alternative or no choice. But as I say, Tom works in that area and probably knows much more than I. All right, have you a view on that, by the way? Give us a call on 07491 25,000, 07491 25,000. Your WhatsApps and your texts into us, please. 086 60 25,000. Of course, if you're listening outside the Republic and you want to get involved in that way, 00353 86 60 25,000, and the same for the regular telephone number. And as always, just to remind you that you can watch every episode of the 9 till noon show on your smart TV via YouTube or Facebook Watch, or just cast it up if you've got a Chromecast. You can watch it on Highland Radio Ireland on YouTube and Highland Radio Hub. Highland Hub or Highland Radio News and Sport on Facebook. All right, then, let's take a break whilst we line up our next conversation.
Text or WhatsApp your view to Greg on 086 60 25,000.
Edel Cashman, liver transplant recipient, encourages you to talk about organ donation with your family.
People say it's the gift of life, and that's almost become a cliche. But it literally is the gift of new life. It's just so important for people to talk about organ donation, because it's not something I would have given a second thought to before it became my life.
For information, visit hse.ie/organ donation and start talking about organ donation today. From the HSE.
You may think you know driving, but you don't know Nissan e-Power. An electric motor that brings you the performance and response on the road that you demand, charged by a petrol engine as you drive. The thrill and economy of electric driving without ever having to plug in. And it's exclusive to Nissan. Who said you have to plug in to drive electric? Find the drive you've been looking for with e-Power. Now available in the new Nissan Qashqai. A unique electrifying experience now unplugged. Nissan. Innovation that excites.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Salah, Ninnis, the Beatles. You can now fly to Liverpool 8 times a week with Ryanair this summer. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Okay, let's look at the weather forecast for today. It is going to be wet and windy. With spells of heavy rain bringing the potential for flooding. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees in fresh to strong and gusty southwesterly winds. Windy with frequent showers tonight, becoming scattered by morning as winds start to ease. Lowest temperatures of 6 to 8 degrees as fresh to strong and gusty westerly winds moderate a little later on. Right, okay. We are joined on the programme now by Dr. Sarah Bennon, who is a GP, specialist interest in women's health and lecturer at NUI Galway. And Sarah joins us on the programme now. Doctor, good morning to you. Thank you very much for taking the time today. Can you hear me okay?
Hi there. Can you hear me? There might be a little bit of background noise here. Is that okay?
It's perfect. The modern microphone is excellent. It cuts out most of that.
Okay.
We're speaking to you off the back of a release at the end of last year that shows 1 in 2 women experiencing menopause describe it as a negative experience. Nothing about those statistics, I'm sure, would surprise you in your field of work, Doctor?
No, not at all. And we see many women who have difficulties with the menopause coming to present to us because we do have very effective treatments for it now, which back in the early noughties were kind of boo-hooed a lot because of research that came out showing a lot of negative consequences. But since then, we've understood more and realized that research was very flawed, and it presented a situation that wasn't really true. And actually, the benefits of HRT far outweigh any of the negative risks. So really, there is a lot we can do for the menopause and those negative symptoms that many women experience around the menopause.
Yeah, and I would say this information has come as no surprise to women themselves. This is just a study that confirms that, because this is a lived experience and people talk to each other and would have a great sense of this being the reality.
No, absolutely. And I think, if we look at women and their lives historically, it's only really in the last 30 to 40 years that we've been out in the public domain working in that kind of an environment. So really these symptoms can negatively affect us in our working day to day. And that's really what's important, because previously we would have been in the home and working from the home. So we were much more able to buffer these symptoms and to choose a lifestyle that suited them much better. But now we have the work demands and we have to be able to meet those, and that makes it very difficult to be able to manage these symptoms.
Yeah, and that could be managing parenting and everything all at the same time. But still, the majority of women are not comfortable discussing menopause and how it might be impacting them with an employer. So that's another burden I'm sure many might feel.
Absolutely. And I suppose there would be stigma associated with it. And our society in general, the Western society, doesn't really accept the menopause in ways, we're all about young women having, being fertile, and this older woman doesn't have the same social stance that younger women would have. And I suppose that differs in different societies. And if we look at tribal societies, actually it's quite revered to go into the menopausal phase of our life. And there are people out there who are now talking about this and writing about this and saying, well, actually we need to change that discourse or that narrative and understand that really this is a positive time in our life when we don't have to be governed by cyclical menstrual changes in everything in our body, whereas we have more consistency in our day-to-day life when we're post-menopausal. But it's that perimenopausal period when things are quite difficult and changing for us, and that's when we need most help. And we are so happy to talk to people about it as doctors and GPs. Every GP is qualified to be able to discuss this with patients, and just kind of encourage people to discuss it with their GPs. And of course, then that discourse with the employers is a harder one, because we have to maintain this kind of professional stance in our employment environment. But there is a lot of change happening there, and there's working groups helping employers understand more.
I think that's what needs to be done, because I don't think 4 in 5 women are shy about it or would feel. I would say it's more to do with what they fear, what their concern might be to the reaction to that information, or how they might be perceived, or how it might affect their growth potential. So it's the employer that needs to sort of make a space, I would presume, that says,
Absolutely.
you know what, this is okay for us to talk about as well, and we're flexible and we understand, and you're half the population, and you know what I'm on about. So get it out in the open there, so it's an uncomfortable environment to converse about.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can do a lot to do that. I mean, even having information days for employees about the menopause, and helping everybody understand, not just the women, but all the men and the women working in that environment, that it is there, it can impact negatively on us and our working, and that they're there to help. And I did read, and I can't remember what company it was, that they're going to be giving 10 days leave for menopausal symptoms to women, and that's a real positive step, in the right direction, because it's accepting that it's difficult and that it can have a negative impact, and that's really from a female perspective, that's wonderful to see that changing.
Well, what can we do with this information now? As I say, I think really it's, for a large group of people, it's telling them what they already knew. But how is this that, maybe it's spoken about more, that people maybe don't suffer in silence, that they're more willing to speak to the GP, that they will consider the likes of HRT? Because I would say some people, the last information they heard, that it's not good for them, that it could actually disimprove their health. So what would you like to see come from this wider conversation we're having about menopause this last year to 2 years?
Yeah, well, certainly a government campaign, I think, will be really important. I know they did start that this year with the International Menopause Month. And I think following...
But I never saw much about that. A post went up on gov.ie and a couple of Twitter ads. But and that ad campaign was, you could argue it was a little bit convoluted or too clever. I think sometimes you just have to get back to basics and have a conversation and raise awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot has been happening in that regard. And many talk shows have been talking about the menopause. I think that's important to raise awareness and allow acceptance, because as women, we have to accept it ourselves, because denial is a strong way of coping with things, but we fundamentally have to accept it ourselves. And so also then do all the different agents, the health authorities, and then the government with the public campaign. I think it's got to be multi-sectoral. It's got to be something that really shows women that actually we believe this, it's important, and we care. And it's all about normalizing it as an entity. I mean, half of the world population goes through the menopause, and if half of them have difficulties, it's really important that it's addressed and normalized, and allows acceptance on many different levels in society.
Do you think, well, this is kind of a sweeping statement, I don't mean it like that there, but there's an awful lot of people, 3/4 report temperature changes, changes in periods, tiredness, sleep issues, all of the things that can really affect not just your sleep time, but your daytime as well. Like, is there, do people grin and bear it? In other words, should they not? Is there help for a lot of the effects of menopause?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are all common symptoms of the reduction in estrogen, and that's what happens in our perimenopausal period. We have high levels of estrogen. And if you, I don't know, certainly when I was pregnant, I knew that estrogen made me feel so positive on myself, and that we are missing that. And it has a huge impact on us. It promotes optimal sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. So that's that's what helps improve the sleep. And when it's reduced, it has a negative impact on sleeping cycling. So all of these symptoms, they're all explainable physiologically. And what we do is we replace the estrogen. And the estrogen that we replace, it's a minuscule dose in relation to what we give for the pill. So it's actually quite tiny. And then we protect the uterus as well with some progestin. So it's really simple. There are different regimens, and we can find one to suit everyone. So I think people, if lack of sleep has a hugely negative impact on us. And if that's what people are experiencing, or the night sweats or the flushes, certainly go and see your doctor, and it will help. The HRT will help for a period of time, and then we can wean off it if that's what people want to do. So there are loads of different options, but certainly having the discussion is really important, and not suffering in silence, because we're only dying to help people if we can.
And finally, too, another important reason not to do that is because there can be crossover stuff. Like, you could have other health issues that you're putting down to menopause, and if you don't talk to your GP, who's to say that something might go missed or undiagnosed? So there's every reason to have a relationship and a conversation with your GP on a reasonably regular basis, just to make sure that you're not putting one problem down as menopause and perhaps missing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will all be checked when you come in to see your GP. And another important thing to recognize is that lifestyle changes are so important. And we can argue that lifestyle and changes are so important for every single illness that we have. And it's the same for the perimenopausal period as well. So we will discuss all that with people: their exercise, their diet, a stillness practice that they may have, prayer or meditation or mindfulness. And then also sleep. So optimizing sleep is really important. But the HRT it can be a great help to helping to optimize all these different pillars of health within ourselves.
And look after yourself and put yourself first. Care for yourself.
Absolutely.
Dr. Sarah Brennan, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Too,
greatly appreciated. Take care. She's a GP, specialist interest in women's health, of course, and a lecturer at NUI Galway. 086 60 25,000. Just to run through some of those statistics, by the way, because they really are quite important. Almost 1 in 3 women over 35 say they were currently going through perimenopause or menopause. 1 in 3 of women over 35. 1 in 2, actually more than 1 in 2, 55% of women experienced premenopause or perimenopause or menopause, describing it as a negative experience. The average woman in menopause experiences up to 7 symptoms at any one time. 1 in 3 women in menopause say they have constant symptoms, which again is a huge swathe of the population. Only 1 in 5, as I mentioned, of women in menopause say they would be happy to talk about it to their manager at work. The majority of people, 93%, agree that menopause can have a big impact on a woman's everyday life. So the top advice: talk to your GP, get information or advice, get as much help as you can, stay positive and be kind to yourself. All right, as I say, 07491 25,000. Few of you messaging in. Apologies should be given. As a walker on Castlegoland Beach, I've just been referred to as riffraff by John Gallagher. This is very insulting, as I'm a person that respects people and property wherever I go. An apology should be asked for. Well, we'll ask Mr. Gallagher if he cares to apologise, but he did make those statements and doubled down on them. He says, in his general experience, I don't believe he's from that area. I don't know, but I don't think he is. And I don't know if he was referring to those people or you specifically, but he has his views. And as I say, not only did he not backtrack on them, but through the course of that conversation, double down on them. Right, just to let you know that the latest information has come through from the Irish Nurses and Midwives Organisation. 52 of our fellow county people here in Donegal, 52, and that doesn't talk to all of them too, because there's some going to Sligo University Hospital, but 52 are awaiting a bed at hospital. So 52 people today, this morning, are sick, so they've been seen, and they require hospital treatment, but they don't have a bed. 30 are in the ED. 30 people waiting for a bed in ED this morning. 22 in wards or elsewhere, bringing a total of 52, which makes up a considerable proportion of the national number, actually, almost 6 or 7%. I'll just have a look at Sligo University Hospital, as well as many people in the south of the county might access it. The situation dire there too. 48 people sick enough to need a hospital bed but unable to get one. 30 of those in the emergency department, 18 in wards or elsewhere. So 100 bother shouting across the northwest, waiting a bed, sick but still can't get into a bed. Right. We're going to break for the news. Stay where you are. We'll be right back.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
At Ulster Bank, we have now begun to close current and deposit accounts. At this time, if your notice period and your deadline has passed, your account is now queued for closure. You must take action now. If you are still relying on your personal or business bank account and in need of support, please contact us immediately. Visit ulsterbank.ie, your local branch, or call 0818 210 260. Call costs may vary and calls from mobiles may not be free. Ulster Bank Ireland DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
McElhenney's biggest ever winter sale is now on with unmissable offers on all your favourite designer brands. Enjoy major savings across fashion, footwear, homeware and more with up to 50% off today. Join us in store or visit our website now for spectacular savings in the McElhenney's winter sale, our biggest sale of the season. Are you tired of waiting for treatment or surgery? Did you know you can receive immediate treatment across the border under the new NI planned healthcare scheme at potentially no cost? Donegal patients are still being treated with us at Kingsbridge Private Hospital Northwest post-Brexit. The process is easy and our dedicated team will help guide you through it. So why wait? Contact us today to find out how you can skip the waiting lists and receive treatment in Northern Ireland. Visit kingsbridgeprivatehospital.com, because life matters.
Cutting through the spin. The 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
All right, it is 11 o'clock. Time to get a news update. So we say good morning once again now to Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Gardaí are investigating a spate of car thefts in Letterkenny last week. A car was stolen from the Solomon's Court area on St Stephen's Day and later found burnt out at Kirkstown. Meanwhile, on Wednesday last, shortly before 5 a.m, a car was found on its roof in the Killyclog area after being taken from a driveway in Chestnut Grove. Investigations are continuing following a crash in the Falcarra area yesterday, which resulted in a number of people being hospitalised. The collision occurred at Devlin on the Glenveigh to Mount Errigal Road at the turnoff for Muckish at around 3 p.m. The injuries sustained by the occupants of both cars are not believed to be life-threatening. The pressure on the health system is going to get worse before it gets better. That's according to the HSE, which has warned it doesn't believe the situation is at its peak yet. 52 people are currently waiting on a bed at Letterkenny University Hospital, according to latest figures from the INMO. Gardaí are appealing for information after a man was assaulted in Buncrana on Christmas Eve. Shortly after 3 a.m, Gardaí received a report of a man lying on the main street. Upon arrival, Gardaí found the man conscious. It's believed he was set upon by an unknown male. Gardaí are also appealing, meanwhile, for information in connection with a number of criminal damage incidents that occurred in Donegal over the Christmas and New Year period. In one instance, damage was caused to a car in Letterkenny. Elsewhere, a window of a licensed premises was smashed in Lifford, while in the Falcarra area on New Year's Eve, a rock was thrown at a window. Plans to develop an old garage near Dunfanaghy into a microbrewery have been widely welcomed. The green light has been given to transform McElhenney's garage in Port Nabla to accommodate the manufacturing, distribution and sale of alcohol. Catholic bishops are raising concerns over the ability of schools to remain true to their ethos after the removal of the so-called baptism barrier. The Irish Times reports that bishops have told the Department of Education that they're concerned about the ability to cater for parents who want to enrol their children in Catholic schools. And a status yellow wind warning has been issued for Donegal. Very strong and gusty southwest winds are being forecast for tonight, especially near coasts and over high ground. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
OK, Michaela, thank you very much indeed for that.
The McPlant. What? 100% vegan? Even the cheese? But how? It can't be. Can it?
It really is. The McPlant from McDonald's, with melt-in-the-mouth vegan cheese, a delicious sesame-seeded bun, vegan mayo and a juicy Beyond Meat patty. It's our iconic taste, plant-based. Served after 11 a.m, subject to availability.
Caller says, thanks to the lady who brought up the Castlegolan beach problem. I think it's a disgrace that local people can be stopped from using a lovely beach while they used which they used for generations by a stranger. As a young cross-country runner, I've used this route frequently through the years and would hate to lose access. That comes in from Eleanor. I've worked in the golf club for a number of years, and the objector should remember that we are just employees. The area doesn't have much room for work, and the employment this gives in the area is immeasurable. It has certainly kept my family in the village. People need to remember that there is another access route onto the beach, and that is still there. All right, thank you very much for that as well. So sad that elderly people in Castlegoland who are only fit to access the beach by vehicle are denied this amenity in their final years. They have special nostalgic memories that they shared with their families. Thanks, Bernie, for that. Hi, Greg. With regards to Castlegolan Beach, Seaweed writes a map and accompanied the deeds of a property. There is no dispute. Also, Mr. Gallagher must be aware that if you buy a property with a burden, i.e. a right of way, it travels with the property, and that's a point I tried to make. Hi, Greg. In relation to the stabbings, how does Roderick Gorman know it's an isolated incident? Did he get them vetted? And if so, how? When they have no IDs of any kind, don't think I'm falling for that statement. I mean, we as a society aren't routinely vetted. That does come up a lot about people being vetted or not. I'm not sure what difference that might make, but anyway. Right, okay. Now, at the start of every year, there is a declassification of state and government files. These documents often give us an insight into what's happened in our recent history. New papers released for 2023. I'm delighted to say, by historian Dr. Joe Kelly to go through some of it. Good morning to you, Joe. How are you keeping?
Very well. Maidin why good hen, Greg. Agus the luck Happy New Year to yourself and your team and all there listening in Highland Radio.
Thank you so much for joining us and for those kind words. Dr. Kelly, right, pick out a nugget because of what we might talk about first. Firstly, is everything released, or is there still an element of redaction, or what goes on?
A very good question. See, the thing is, it used to be every 100 years, and then it became less and less, and the Irish government settled for 30 years. But the problem was that in the 6 counties, the British government decided on 20 years. So if we have papers that are really relating to, for example, the peace process or to Northern Ireland, and we're going 30 years and they're going 20 years, then there's a discrepancy and there's information out on one side before the other. So gradually in the last number of years, the Irish state papers are being reduced to 20 years. Now, you asked the question, are all released? No. Some stuff will always remain classified, probably for 100 years, but non-derogatory or dangerous or non-high secretive information obviously is not being released.
And who determines that? Because, let's say, for instance, and this is not to be political about it, but there is currently a Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael Green Party government in power. 20 years, 30 years even is not that long ago. Maybe there's some stuff they might not be happy to be released, but they'd be happy for, say, for instance, something that could prove damaging to political opponents to be released. Is there any politics played in this, or is it independently determined what's okay and what's not?
Well, that I'm not 100% sure of, but it would be people that would be involved with an archiving in the departments that would have that decision to make. And obviously there is obviously at all times people there that are responsible for what is released and what is not. I think you had a very interesting interview a couple of years ago when you had the Minister for the Roads at the time on, and he talked about how it's not what we it's not that we lie, it's what we don't tell you. And I think that's what's very important, is what the government doesn't tell us. And these releases are really, they're not very controversial, but it gives us an insight into what was happening in the government mind, what was happening within the civil service, what was happening between the president and the houses of the Oireachtas. It's more or less Department of Foreign Affairs papers more than anything else that are important or that are very insightful, because it tells us what was happening internationally and particularly within the Northern Ireland situation.
Right. Well, shall we start there then? Prince Andrew, he predicted a surge in electoral support for Sinn Féin in the Republic after the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, Belfast Agreement, whichever way you want to refer to it as. What was he saying, and to whom?
Well, at the time, one must remember that Sinn Féin there'd been Northern Assembly elections, and SDLP had won the majority of the seats in the Northern Assembly at that time, and there was only one Sinn Féin TD in the whole of Ireland. There was, in the Republic of Ireland, that was Kevin O'Callaghan. So Sinn Féin wasn't very popular at the time. And with the progress within the peace process or the Good Friday Agreement, Prince Andrew was of the opinion that Sinn Féin would increase in popularity, and that would put the smile on the other side of the Irish government's face. And the Irish government at the time were of the opinion that Sinn Féin would never get traction because of what it would have seen as the legacy of violence and association with the IRA. But as we know since, Sinn Féin have, to a greater or lesser degree, been able to decouple that legacy to some degree, despite even still it being tried to be used against them. And they have grown to be the biggest party in the south and also in the north. So it was very interesting that Prince Andrew, there's questions to be asked about himself and his judgment on other matters. But with regards to this political matter in Ireland, I think he got it spot on. And that was released. It was a talk or an interview he had with an Orlo Hanrahan. She was a consulate to the Irish in America. And she'd met him in Boston. So this was the content of her conversation with him. And she reported this and noted this back to her superiors back here in Ireland. Yeah, that was in 1998.
Rightio. Gerry Adams, he had a moral dilemma over the Canary Wharf bombing in London in 1996. What did we learn?
Well, see, again, the peace process was in its fledgling, and then it was not working, and then this bomb took place, and that really created a lot of difficulties. And the question was, and even at the time it revealed that Gerry Adams was up saying that, look, he didn't know, but had I have known about this, it would have created a moral dilemma. Would I have been able to go to the authorities or not? Because the republicanism in me would have said, look, I have to look at the side that I'm on. But he didn't obviously know about it. But this was something that he had expressed at the time, that he had a moral dilemma to he'd have a choice to make, and that he feared that he wouldn't have made the choice in making it public or made it known to the police. And it's very interesting that Boris Johnson, at the same time, he was the editor of an English paper at the time, and he was urging the Irish government to have a hard-egged approach to the IRA. He says, we have them almost beaten. The British have them almost beaten.
What did he mean by that, though, I wonder? What would that have meant, do you think?
Well, I just think that, putting it simply, and we've had 800 years of English arrogance when it comes to meddling in Irish affairs. They thought that they were stronger and better and bigger, and that their army would subdue the IRA. And in part, that's why the Canary Wharf, historically, the bomb was let off. Wasn't so much, I know it killed 2 people and injured about 100 people, but the bomb itself did £150 million worth of damage, and it was really a bomb to let the British government know how advanced the IRA had been technologically at that time, and they weren't in the descendancy as Boris Johnson might have thought. And look, we've had that legacy subsequently when he became Prime Minister with Northern Ireland, so we know that, and with the protocol and wanting to break the protocol. But look, that's for another day. But he this idea of having a hard-egged approach to the IRA. And obviously, had that approach been followed, we mightn't have had the peace process that we've enjoyed for the last 30 years.
Well, my apologies for asking you to get inside the mind of Boris Johnson on a Tuesday morning, but anyway, you did well. Of course, it's never off the agenda, but I think there is more maybe emphasis behind conversations on a border poll, United Ireland. But those conversations, of course, were also happening back in the early 90s, and the British government compiled a report on a united Ireland. So what was their motivation? What did they learn from it, and what have we learned from this being revealed?
Well, obviously, the British government had to always, have an awareness of what was happening in the 6 counties of Northern Ireland, as they would call it. And the view was in 1993 that it would take 50 years at least before there would be a Catholic majority in Northern Ireland. And they were believing that fertility rates would fall within the Catholic population and be in line with the European averages of the time. But as we know, in 2021, for the first time ever in the history of the 6 counties, that 45.7% of the people say they're either Catholic or of Catholic origin, while only 43.5% were either Protestant or associated to being Protestant tradition. So they were way out with their calculations, and it didn't take 50 years. And again, that's just interesting how that might have formed British policy, if that makes sense. And maybe a reassurances to the unionists that this would take 50 years and not to be too worried about it. But look, that's just, it was an interesting article in 1993 that they had noted and it was noted in the Irish state papers, yeah.
3 years later, an Irish-American campaign was enacted to boycott Bushmills whiskey. What?
Yeah. It was a very unfortunate in one way. It was in San Francisco, and it was the mayor, Willie Brown. He poured a bottle of Bushmills down the sewer there in San Francisco, and the Irish community groups and business groups were boycotting Bushmills, and the reason was it came to light that only 10 of the 108 strong workforce in the Bushmills in Antrim there were of Catholic origin or Catholic tradition. But despite the fact that Bushmills was owned by Irish distilleries and they were based in Cork, and John Hume at the time tried to intervene and say, look, this is a predominantly Protestant area, number one. Number two, there is not a big turnover of employment within the company. And it wasn't an anti-Catholic, it was just the nature of where they were located and the people that were available to them. But despite his efforts, the boycott continued for some time, and unfortunately, Bushmills was seen as being very sectarian, which in fact it wasn't. And it was clearly revealed in the state papers that there was a concern over this kind of attitude towards Bushmills, or to in fact any kind of Irish company, where it wasn't really fair to be making those kind of assessments or judgments, that there was nothing to corroborate what was being said, even though there was a majority Protestant workforce in Bushmills. It wasn't by design, it was by default.
Right.
That's what has been argued.
Well, in politics, words matter, and they always have. Margaret Thatcher was reminded of that in referring to the 26 counties as the Irish Free State. Like, why would she have used that phrase? Why was she reprimanded for doing so, or at least reminded not to do so?
I wouldn't have. It was interesting that the state papers carried that, and there was a note, a memo sent to her liaison people that, look, don't be referring to Ireland as the Irish Free State anymore. Now, I don't know whether it was by a slip of tongue or design. The Irish Free State, as we know, was what happened between 1922 and 37. But in Article 4 of our Constitution, we are called either Ireland or ERA. There's two names for Ireland, the Irish ERA or Ireland, and gently reminded her to either start calling us ERA or Ireland. Now, some people would say we were the Republic of Ireland, but we didn't become a republic until 1948. So it was just to let her know that we weren't the Free State. It was Ireland or ERA.
And I'm not sure if there's a clear answer to this, but if someone now refers to the Republic as the Free State, there might be. What would the political motivation for doing so be?
Well, we're back to the conversation we had, one of the conversations we had about the Civil War.
Okay.
The Free State would be merely the 26 county pro-treaty view. As where the Republic would be the 32 county ideal. So look, we're getting into...
Right.
But, some people would call it the Free State, but that was the foundation of our nation in the sense of the 26 counties. That was the Free State. But look, we're now Ireland or ERA, and that's where we're at, yeah.
All right, we're the Republic of Ireland or ERA. There's no Republic of ERA.
No, it's ERA. Actually, the Constitution doesn't use the word republic. It just says ERA or Ireland. We are referred to as ERA or Ireland. And as I said, it was in 1948, I think it was, that Ireland was then declared a republic. and that we were no longer having to fulfil the criteria of the Anglo-Irish Agreement of 1921 with regards to the king.
So it was a natural transition then as that expired.
Yeah.
Right, back to 1976, and you know what? You probably could, some would argue you could make the same point today. A report in 1976 raised concerns how television in Ireland was corrupting the minds of the young.
Yeah, that was a very, very interesting one. That there was a report showing that there was kids were watching too much television, and this created a little bit of a concern. And remember, at the time there was no RT2. RT2 television didn't go online until 1978, I think it was. And I think we're old enough to remember, Greg. And this is alien to.
I'm not old enough to remember. I'm not old enough to remember RT2 coming on air, Mr. Kelly.
Not RT2, but RT1 or RT2.
I remember Channel 4 coming on, but no, I was...
No, but they put off the television at 12 o'clock.
Yes, I remember that. I do remember that.
That's the point.
Okay.
And the TV stopped at 12 o'clock, and what you were doing, there was no more TV. That's what I'm coming to. And so TV wasn't streamed like it is today. And there was a concern that how much time were children watching TV for, and now if we're going to have an RT2, were they going to watch more? And the report showed that they were watching 4 hours and 27 minutes of television over 3 days. Recent figures would show that children are watching at least 6 hours and 30 minutes on their phone.
Yeah, screen time is through the roof.
That's
indeed.
On one day. So this was 4 hours and 27 minutes in 3 days. And what was very interesting about the report as well was the report criticised parents for the lack of observing their children watching TV after 9 o'clock, because that was adult time, and that parents should take more heed into what their children were watching after child time hours, if that makes sense.
But that was a huge conversation. I mean, people might remember, what is it, Mary Whitehouse in Britain, and of course, you know, we would have been exposed to that conversation as well about stuff that's on. I mean, to some extent, I actually think TV, scheduled TV now, is not quite as racy and naughty as it was. You know, going back a decade or two, but it was it was an everyday conversation about what was on TV and what was the content of the program and what have you. So I can imagine, as you know, more people adapted to having TVs in the house, it was a proper, genuine concern.
Well, the thing is, you see, as a single national broadcaster, RT1, there was nothing else. So your news was only available there. Yeah. What shocks me as a teacher, even today, most children do not watch TV. They do not get any information from their TV.
No. Very few watch scheduled television. It's just it's YouTube, TikTok, or streaming
I'll give you an
services.
example of that recently in my own teaching experience, where I was doing Christmas. I was doing an RE class on Christmas, and I started showing them some of the Christmas advertisements. There's great morals in them, and there's great stories in them. They hadn't seen these advertisements. They had known nothing of the different advertisements, say World War I and the chocolate 1914, and the football soccer game that was played. And there's a lovely Sainsbury ad on that. Never seen it. They hadn't seen any of these advertisements. And as the student said to me, "Sir, I don't watch TV. It's all social media." So look, it'll be interesting.
What does the future hold, though? Because, you know, we can romantically talk about it. It's not even romantic conversation about the importance of our history, archiving our history. I know that's something that you do and what have you. But if a generation is coming through that has no interest in it, it's not relevant to them. They don't want to hear my stories, let alone, you know, generations going back. I just wonder what our attitude to history might be in the future, because everything is like it's microwave cooked meals almost of how we live our lives and what we care about. We care about something on a Monday, and then we care about something else on a Tuesday. I don't know what history or how we look at history. I don't know what it's going to be like in a couple of generations, Joe. I don't know if you've pondered that.
2 or 3 things there. Number one, I think we need to get with it as a generation and understanding where their platforms are and how we access those platforms and how we promote that. That's number one. And number two, I think the litmus test in all this, and the thing that will survive in all this, is radio. They are listening to radio. So our conversation today, they are listening to. They do hear radio, they do listen to radio, and I think radio will become more important over time than TV. That's my thinking. And as well as I said that, we need to go and figure out where their platforms are and trying to access that. But I have no doubt children love stories. It's a natural human instinct. They love stories. Like, if you're listening to small children want you to read stories at night, they want to hear the story again and again and again. Young people like stories. They want to know and they want to rehear this stuff.
Yes, but we're not doing it as parents. That's as much as we possibly should. And that's why, I don't want to reference this as if it's a criticism of parents. It's not. But, the fact that children are being exposed to these stories through these adverts for the first time, we aren't having those conversations. I think we're all just so hell-bent on making sure that they're okay emotionally and, they've got everything that they need and they'll be able to get a house or something. I just wonder if we're so consumed in the moment, that really we don't have space to reflect and educate our young people about what went before them, because I think they might feel it's irrelevant. But I take your point, but I just wonder if we en masse, despite your great efforts, if we en masse sort of stop archiving it, start talking about it, stop seeing the importance in it, eventually it'll be a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of people that might be there to archive and discuss it.
Well, maybe, but the only thing I'll say is we're here in a stage historically in human development that we'd never been here before, that we have a tool in children's hands. When I say young adults, even ourselves, in their hands, there's more technology in the phone that's in the hand of a young person today than all the computers put together to put the first man on the moon. That's what they have in their hand. They don't need, for the first time, they're the first generation that do not need a teacher or a parent to educate them. They can educate themselves through the phone. If they want to know something, they can find it. And even now with AI, the artificial intelligence, only being released, the new artificial intelligence, it's just amazing, very dangerous.
It's scary.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, but augmented reality too, actually. Maybe this is the future. Recently, local developers were up here last year or the year before. It could have been 10 years ago because of COVID. I don't know when anything happened. But you were able to walk through, I can't remember which precise building it was, but you were able, with your VR, to walk through, the ruins of a building that in this virtual reality had been reformed, and it was very immersive. And maybe that's the future. And if Mark Zuckerberg has his way, we'll all be wearing helmets and living in some sort of an alternative reality. I seem to remember the story of a submarine towing trawlers when this was back in the 90s. Did we know about that at that time?
Well, there was another submarine that was unfortunately taken to the bottom of the sea.
That might be the one I'm remembering, actually.
Yeah. That led to a lot of controversy here in Donegal at the time or whatever. But in September 13th, 1990, a submarine was dragged back. Nets had been out and was dragged backwards for a number of miles. And they didn't know what it was, but they found out later when the nets were released that there was a sonar in the net, which belonged to the British submarine, and the British wanted it back. They wanted the sonar back, but the Irish trawler, the Contester was the name of it, the MV Contester, wanted, this is off Skerries in County Kerry, they wanted, this was off Skerries in Dublin, they wanted recompense for the damage that had been done to their nets and whatever damage had been done to their trawler being dragged backwards. But the British civil service reminded the Irish civil servants that they could claim immunity on this, diplomatic immunity, which they did, so that they would have to find recompense through the Irish system, that the Irish government would have to pay for any damages as opposed to the submarines. And so that happened in 1990, and it was resolved quietly rather than through the media or in the public.
Good stuff. Was there, am I reading this correctly, that we as a nation thought we were going to build submarines for our own use?
Yeah, well, we've had a good tradition in Ireland with submarines.
Right.
Holland from Clare was the first man to develop a submarine. He went to America and worked for the Fenians. And then the American Army during the American Civil War employed him, and he designed the first submarine. And not to push it any further and blowing my own area, but there was a woman by the name of Conahan. She was Elliot by marriage. She married in 1948, but she came from Fulcara, and she was a draftswoman in World War II on the American Navy submarine. So there was a strong tradition of submarine technology and design here in Ireland traditionally. And in that time, you're making out the report there in the 90s, there was a proposal by a Dutch company to build submarines in Cork, which was ideal. And their idea then was to sell them to Taiwan. They had a market for them already. But this created great alarm in the Irish government because they feared this would damage their relationship with China. And they declared that China was sovereign of its own republic and that of Taiwan as well. So the Irish government were seeing Taiwan as part of China, and to supply submarines from Ireland to Taiwan would be seen as disrespecting China's sovereignty. And so the Irish government said for two reasons. One, because of the fear of the backlash with China, and two, because we were a non-military country. The Dutch company were stopped or were not given the permission to go ahead to build a factory that would create submarines. So that put an end to the submarines in the 1950s. Yeah.
Just time for one more, maybe two. Yeah. A county farmer created unease.
Yeah.
Because his drainage was redefining the border with Donegal.
Yeah.
So unpack that one for us.
Yeah, well, a well-spotted one, Greg, and a very interesting one because it ties in with Fermanagh and Donegal. There was a farmer, William Hamilton, and he was wanting to change the course of, I think it was the Termon River. It's on the border between Donegal and Fermanagh for his farm, whatever drainage he wanted to do. And this created a great controversy because the division between the Donegal and Fermanagh was in the middle of the river, and if he was going to change the course of the river, then he would be changing the course of the border. So he was told that on certain terms that he would have to get the permission of both the authorities in the north and the public authorities in the south to divert the river. And I don't think that was forthcoming, so he didn't get to redraw the border. So I don't know how he managed sense with his farm, but that was back in the 1990s. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And Pope John Paul II, just we were speaking about, obviously, popes a little earlier on in the programme. Finally, on this one, this was a topic of conversation in 98.
Yeah, again, we were chatting earlier about TV and children's memories. Anybody starting work today that have left college would not remember Pope John Paul. And Pope Benedict now is to be buried shortly. Pope John Paul died in 2005, but he came here to Ireland in 1979, and millions of people went to visit him and see him. And there was talk then in December 1998 began that he might come back to Ireland again. And John McGee, who was the Bishop of Cloyne, would have been Pope John Paul's private secretary at one time. And he was saying, look, Pope John Paul would be interested in coming back to Ireland. But the Irish diplomatic service said that it didn't look that this was going to happen because there wasn't a liking within the hierarchy to have this. And it was very interesting. He said it would be like the hierarchy, it would be like a teacher asking an inspector to come into their room. And at that time, if you remember, the Eamon Casey scandal broke and various other scandals broke. And so he said that it would be, the Irish hierarchy wouldn't want the Pope to be coming to Ireland because he might uncover a lot of stuff that they wouldn't want him to know. So it never really materialised. And so Pope John Paul never came to visit Ireland for the second time. But that was being mooted in 1998, yeah.
And very fine, it's just a comment from a listener. I don't know if you have anything to say about it, but I kind of inclined to sort of think along the lines they do. Greg, why in a democracy is there secret and classified papers? Are we, as a people, too stupid to tell the truth? Can we not handle the truth? I think they're sort of invoking a few good men there in that. But, I mean, I suppose in this day and age where information is, immediate and we feel like we know everything that's going on, do you believe, I'm not asking you to defend classifying papers, but I mean, do you see the logic of it at least maybe?
Well, I'll put it like this, maybe in my own personal capacity, having done history and recorded a lot of people. There's a lot of information, not a lot, but some information when I would record people that I would know that I would never release. It would be immoral of me to do so. maybe something about a family's, history or past, dirty linen, so to speak. And I always use a maxim out of St. John's Gospel: the truth will set you free. And if you release truth, if it doesn't set the people free, then don't use it, because then it becomes a tool to injure and to hurt, and it doesn't set people free. And at times one has to have always that. As a historian, that's the maximum I use. If I'm writing something, if it's truthful, is it going to set people free? Is it going to be framed properly? Or is it something that's going to be used to cause damage?
Weaponized, yeah.
And weaponized. And we don't need that. The old phrase of let sleeping dogs lie, and sometimes things should be let lie. And with regards to state papers, we can't have everything out there, because we have fragile situations. Just take, for example, we know with our own peace process and trying to keep that alive. If everything was out immediately, then it would create great controversy and unease, and it would make it very, very unstable. And I think over time, the truth can be released where that it doesn't damage the process of whatever is happening. So it's not that I'd be wanting to hide truth or anything like that there, but I think we have to be very, very careful. And unfortunately, we've lived in a world of media where people's lives have been damaged by media, and they say, well, it's the truth. But it's not good enough just to be the truth. What effect has that on the person that you've published about? Making people suicidal. I'm just thinking of Princess Diana and the way the media treated her, and how she lost her life being chased by the media. But it's the truth. You have to ask yourself, how far do you go with the truth? Where is the truth and where is personal freedom?
But who's I don't know if arbitrator is the right word of that, although, I mean, obviously you can through your history, but in terms of the state stuff, maybe we could learn things that could avoid other things happening as well. But anyway, it's an interesting conversation, perhaps for another day. Finally, very finally, what are we going to be talking about this year? When you rejoin us? No spoilers,
we're into Civil War territory this year. I think you mentioned earlier on the Drumbo Martyrs. That will be a very interesting.
That's right.
one.
You flagged that, didn't you, in our pre-Christmas convo?
I'm sure. Look, we'll take it from there. I haven't.
We have to get back to. We might do another round of place names, maybe. Actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
At some point.
No problems at all.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for your time as always. Happy New Year to you and all your family and friends and students and all that kind of stuff.
Can I just give a wee shout out to a lady that will be 103 at the end of this month, but I'll probably not be on before it, is Mary McAuliffe in Dunfanaghy. She's older than the state. And there was a stone unveiled there in Falcarra there just a few days ago in memory of herself and her family. So just a big shout out to Mary McAuliffe, going to be 103 on the last day of this month.
Happy birthday, Mary.
Lady, and to just wish her all the best.
Okay. And separate to that beautiful request, you mentioned earlier in the conversation, don't be afraid to blow Falcarra's trumpet. That's where you're from.
At times I get worried because
I've never heard any criticism of it. You must do it very subtly because I don't really notice it too much,
Well, there's no sign in the last 20 years. They've been taken down. There's no signpost for Falcarra, so I get concerned when I don't see my way home.
Okay, well we could have another convo on that. So you always drop these bits just as we're wrapping up. Thanks very much as always. Appreciate your time. Take care of yourself, Dr. Joe Kelly.
Text or WhatsApp your view to Greg on 086 60 25,000.
Do you want to take the next step in your career? At Atlantic Technological University, we can help you. Choose from over 60 part-time courses starting in January. Work hard and thrive with a flexible learning experience designed to suit you. Build qualifications in areas with high skills demand such as science, engineering, education, culinary, tourism and leadership. Expand your mind, your options and your career. Apply now at atu.ie/January start. ATU, the future is here.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
2023 is officially here. And whether you're turning over a new leaf or starting right where you left off, who doesn't want to shrink their grocery bill at this time of year? Dunnes Stores Double Savers does exactly that. Save in the aisle with loads of your favourite products at everyday low prices. Then save again at the till with our 10 off 50 and 5 off 25 grocery vouchers. Double Savers from Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used on next qualifying grocery shop.
For day-to-day healthcare needs, generations have trusted the experienced staff at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. From coughs and colds to aches and pains, from vitamin supplements to first aid essentials. McGee's have what you need when you need it, with a full prescription service available daily. McGee's Chemist, Main Street, Letterkenny. For healthcare help and advice you can always trust.
The winter sale continues at Michael Murphy Sports and Leisure. Get 20% off men's, women's and kids' shoes and save an extra 20% on sale items in store and online while stocks last. Also, free next day delivery on orders over €85. Gear up for 2023 with the winter sale at michaelmurphysports.ie.
If over the holidays you decide it's time to change your car, then why not treat yourself to a new Kia in 2023? Make an inquiry on our website and we'll be in touch to arrange your purchase when we return in the new year. We have cars ready to drive away in January, so visit imotors.ie. iMotors would like to wish everyone a happy new year.
There's no place like a Foy & Company home. Our big January sale is now on. We're also giving away €100 Foy's vouchers every day for 12 days in January. For a chance to win, visit our social media for details. Foy's big January sale is now on at foys.ie and in store in Letterkenny and Balbuffet. There's huge discounts off all interior paints, wallpaper, ready-made and custom-made curtains, also off cushions, rugs, household and gifts, lighting, kitchenware and much more.
Okay, if you've listened to this programme for any period of time, you will know that we have dedicated a great deal of time to the status and the future of Lifford Hospital. And it would appear, and I use the word appear because I really don't take anything for granted until such time as I actually see something happening, but plans for a new hospital in Lifford have taken a big step forward following talks between the HSE and Donegal County Council. The 3.5-acre site for the facility has been identified as part of a wider redevelopment of lands along the N14. John Quinn's the man's going to know whether this is as good news as it might seem. He's chair of the Friends of Lifford Community Hospital and joins us. And for the first time I can see you, John. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right, okay, so...
Happy New Year to you and your staff, okay?
Thank you very much, John. Now, I mean, there's been false dawns in the past, white smoke on positive news. Where does this sit? Where do you frame this news as it relates then to the future of this important facility in this area?
Yeah, well, we're kind of in an awkward spot because we've been in talks with the HSE and the County Council officials, and we give a commitment that we wouldn't be divulging any information until everything was done, but... At the moment, it's out there in the public domain that, yes, it is good news, and the Friends of Lifford Hospital Committee were delighted with the progress that's been made. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of discussions going on, behind the scenes, positive discussions. What has been put out into the media at the moment, we're aware of it, and we've been aware of it for a number of weeks, but we give a commitment to the HSE that we would hold back.
Yeah, and I'll respect that. So what I'll say is that what's in the public domain at the moment is that, future plans include a new Lifford Hospital, 25-bed unit, short-term respite, step-down beds, and an ample car park, it would seem, 177 car parking spaces. So as I say, I think it's positive that you're in those conversations with the individuals and the groups that you mentioned. So I don't want to do anything at all that might dampen that relationship. So if what we see is being planned is progressed, and as I say, with that commitment, it's part of a wider plan, we have to take it at face value at this point and say good news then.
Oh, it is very good news. We're not denying that. It's brilliant news. I mean, if we look back over the last few years, especially before COVID, because everything kind of went shut down during COVID. There were times when we held our meetings in the old hospital, and there were times we're sitting there and we're looking at ourselves, what are we doing this for, folks? We demoralised and downtrodden and all that, but we stuck with it because we felt that if we kept highlighting it, that eventually something will happen. The they are the HSE and the county council and mainstream politicians and government level. They're all now on the same page. They're all now working together to provide this facility, which is a 25-bed community nursing unit, along with primary care, to include GP facilities, physiotherapy, occupational health network, disability teams, and the ECCs. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
And we have to remember the history too, John, because, and I think, not that it's over, but you and the rest of the team always very, I think, dignified and respectfully in the campaign at the same time. I don't think we'd be where we are now if you hadn't been as vocal about this as you had, because let's not forget there was, it seemed at a time, whereby we could have been losing a number of facilities for a centralised model in Letterkenny, for example. You know, this was a very real concern at times over this journey.
Well, you mentioned Letterkenny there. I don't know if people are aware of it. There was a talk going back 18 months ago. Didn't get much airway that Letterkenny was going to be downgraded. Everything was going to move to Derry and Sligo and Galway. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but we're delighted with the news that's coming out regarding Lifford. Of course we're delighted. I live in Convy, and a few of our committees, most of our committees are, I would say about half the committee are around the Lifford area, but a lot of them are around Convy, Rafo, Carrigans and all over. It's a big area. The HSE did give a commitment, and the politicians have come out. I'm not saying they're trying to steal our clothes, because we don't care, because we've been campaigning for what, oh good Lord, 20 odd years. And to see what's coming now down the road is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I can't see them going back in this. I think, Greg, what really focused the whole thing, why there was such a sea change in the last, say, year, was COVID. Because we always maintained that the community hospital in Lifford and all community hospitals could take up the slack and providing beds where people need respite or short stay instead of, I don't want to use the word, but I'm going to use it, bed blocking in the general hospital. Yep. I think the HSE realised that when they got, when COVID came in, they were caught short. We're not going to highlight that or keep going on about that, but our campaign will still keep going until the first sod is turned and the key is turned in the door.
Yeah, and just again, I don't want to be negative. It's a new year, but the situation, it would seem at this time, is that there'd be no long-term care. So in other words, where people might have nearby access. Is that the case, or is that a fait accompli, or what's the situation there, John?
Well, what we want and what we've been campaigning for is to keep the hospital facility in the Lifford, not just in Lifford, but it's for the whole area. It's a large catchment area, short stay, step down, and respite. Now, long-term beds, yes, it is an issue, and it will be an issue in the future. There's no question about it. Maybe in a couple of years' time, when the thing's up and running, that issue will be revisited. And I can see it. I can see it personally coming on stream that there will be long term. Right. I can see that happening, but maybe not at the moment. But that'd be another fight for another committee. But the other thing I want to do too, Greg, I want to use the time here to thank our committee that's there now at the moment, but also the people have gone before us. We're only carrying on what has been started 20 odd years ago, and we're keeping it going. And it's down to those people too that we've got this far.
Yeah. So what would you say your status of your committee is now? I mean, there's a firm commitment here. There seems to be a cross-party political will and acceptance that this is going to happen or needs to happen. I mean, obviously, I don't think you're going away anywhere, but is there breathing space now maybe to focus on something else for a while, John?
No, we're very much aware of, we're very much aware of the attitude on the political side has changed drastically. In fact, it caught us off guard. We were, stunned. Good God, what's happening here? But our main aim is to have a facility up and running in Lifford, and we'll keep going, as I said, until the key in the door is turned. We do appreciate the effort is being given by some politicians, but there's other politicians who will be, Well, they'll have to watch. They'll have to search their conscience and say, "Can we do a wee bit more?" There is one individual that our committee would like to give notice or give credit to, and that's Gerard Crawford in Lifford. Jerry Crawford has been very, very helpful and very one of our good friends to the committee because he worked in the ambulance service. He's from the area and he knows what the hospital means to the people around that area. There's other politicians that, well, if they had pulled their thing out of their posterior, we might have had something.
You could have said finger
years ago.
You could have said finger and left out the posterior.
Yeah,
listen, John, I'm only joking.
But you know what I mean.
I know, I do understand. Right? Okay. Well, that seems positive. A positive way to start 2023, and we'll watch with interest how things develop. It's always a pleasure, John.
Well, before you go. We are very much appreciated, Greg, of Highland Radio and your programme for keeping the thing in the public domain. That has been very helpful to us because there are people ask us what's going on and we can't say. But the fact now that Pierce Doherty and Gerard Crawford come out and said what was happening, we just can confirm that it is happening. We're waiting now on word back from the HSE. We're waiting to get the I's dotted and the T's crossed. In other words, planning permission for the site. I think that's the big issue at the moment, and I think that's in the process of being done.
All right, and just to recognise that the Friends of the Lifford Community Hospital have been in at the table discussing this and being part of this, and I think it's worth recognising that as well. That's where the work was done. All right, listen, thanks so much, John. Take care of yourself.
Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye. It's our pleasure. John T. Quinn there, Chair of the Friends of Lifford Community Hospital. I mean, having spoken about that so many times over so many years, it would be wonderful to think that will come to fruition and common sense would prevail. Hi, Greg. Interested in this topic on the menopause? It's all very well that the doctor is saying that HRT is okay to take if taken in perimenopause. Menopause goes right into the 60s. Onset of perimenopause can vary. All women is different or are different. Surely there are side effects if a person is on HRT. Some women experience a horrific time. More women's centres need to have more drop-in centres all over Donegal. It's so important to women's mental health, in fact, all over health, so women can express how we really feel. I agree. People should be able to say how they feel. I think the doctor did point to the fact that to take it if it's helpful, and then one can be weaned off it as necessary. So not just give it and just leave it as that, but that there would be ongoing care and attention. I think so. In agreements with what you're saying there. All right, we're going to be speaking to West End actor Dennis Grindle after the break.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
With the ongoing war in Ukraine affecting the cost of energy, many of us are facing a challenging winter. Through Budget 23, government is introducing a range of supports to lessen the financial impact on families, households and businesses, and will continue to monitor the situation in the coming months to protect those in difficulty. It's important that everyone stays warm and well, but where safe and possible to do so, reducing energy use can also reduce bills. Changes like turning your thermostat down by 1 degree and considering how often you use energy-intensive appliances like tumble dryers can make a big difference. For information on available supports and energy-saving advice, visit gov.ie/reduce your use. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
Things don't have to be this way. Introducing
Radio.
Take control. No more searching or complaining. Because listen, it's wherever you are. Experts have said to expect 60 stations across the country.
Yeah, and it's even got the, pod thingies.
Podcasts.
Oh yes, it's got everything.
Discover a radio experience that speaks to you with the Radio Player app. Download today.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Discover Edinburgh this summer with Ryanair's 3 times weekly service. Stunning architecture, endless winding streets and an awe-inspiring castle. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
All right, the weather forecast, wet and windy today with spells of heavy rain bringing the potential for flooding. Highest temperatures of 10 to 12 degrees in fresh to strong and gusty southwesterly winds. Temperatures 6 to 8 degrees. Dennis Grindle, West End actor and currently performing in the Choir of Men. He joins us now. Lovely to see you. Thanks, Dennis, for taking the time out. I think you're muted, are you, Dennis? Or are you? Perhaps you're not. I don't know. We might be having a communication issue. I'll kick you out and bring you back in again, I think is what I might do, because that normally resolves those situations. Right, 086 60 25,000 WhatsApps and texts to that number, or give us a call on 07491 25,000. Emails, comments at highlandradio.com. I wonder, can you hear me now, Dennis? No, I can hear you. Yes, of course. There you are. Right. Okay. Talk to me about your acting career. It's great to see another local person doing so well on the international stage or anywhere in the arts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been at it now for about 10 years. I went to UCD for university back in the day and got involved with theatre there. We set up the Musical Society actually 10 years ago there. And then from there I went to London and did a master's in theatre. I think a couple of Donegal people will know. I went on to do The Commitments. Roddy Doyle's musical, he did that in the West End. So I did Jimmy Rabbit. That was sort of my foot in the industry. Did that for like 2.5 years in London. And then since then I've been sort of traveling around Europe, around America, most recently around America and Australia with a show I'm with now called The Choir of Man, and we just set up in the West End now for a run.
Brilliant. Talk to us about the show.
So the show is called The Choir of Man. It's a 9-piece actor, musician, a sort of immersive theatre show. It's set in a pub, and my character, the poet, takes you around this pub and introduces you to his group of friends who all sing and play a bunch of different instruments. We're a group of lads from all across the UK and Ireland, and it's a show all about friendship and community, and it talks about what it is to be a man in today's society. Sort of picks that apart a bit, all set to our sort of covers of music, you know, like Guns N' Roses, Queen, Adele, Sia, but it's a real fun, feel-good show.
Is that not, there's very little new, but you know, that sort of more different approach to the stage, that more immersive experience, and we're seeing it here locally too with musicians, not simply just, not that it's simple, but performing, but to try and bring the audience into it a bit more, that there's a little bit more meaning there. Is that something, if it's not new, that we're seeing a resurgence in?
I think for sure, yeah. I think there are a good few shows now taking that approach on the West End. I went to see one recently, Cabaret, and I think the idea is that the show and the experience really starts as soon as you set foot into the building. So people will notice when they come and sit in, like the entire theatre space that we're in is made to feel like a pub. There's pictures on the walls, but that the audience can go and look around before the show starts of us boys through the years. The show's been going for 5 years, and there's different pictures of us in like America, in Edinburgh, and in Sydney, and they're invited on stage for a pint. We pull some willing victims onto the stage to sing along with us and to dance along. I think, yeah, that it really does add to the show. People are taken away from the idea that it's, you know, very us and them separated feeling, and they're made to feel like they're a part of the show. And we've noticed that through the years, people really attach to this and begin to feel like friends with us.
Yeah, because that's a really nice balance you have to strike there, and clearly you're doing it. You used one of more recent performances to address the audience. You spoke glowingly about your homeland. Why?
Well, that's actually a part of the show that we do. I think somebody said online that I did it, just off the cuff, but that is actually a part of the show that we do every night. So I speak about Donegal every night in the show. There's a section that we talk about home, especially for performers. I feel like we're all, I've been away from home for a long time now, and I'm usually living out of a suitcase most of the time. But there's a section of the show where I introduce all the boys. We play ourselves in the show. I talk to the audience and say, my name's Dennis, and this is the Choir of Man. This is my friend. These are my friends. So there's a section where I introduce all the boys and where they're from. So every night I get to say, home for me is Donegal, and talk about the different parts of Donegal that, stay in my heart as I travel around the world.
Because it's not easy, it's a tough life, but you have a lot. You're exposed to an awful lot. You're getting some great experiences, but home is home too, isn't it? And that pull is always there.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Oh, God, yeah. Like, I got back for just 2 days there at Christmas, but like during COVID or if I'm in America, you do just miss the beach in Donegal or things like that, or the accent, or just the way people chat. And I think on one of those particular nights there was I didn't know them per se, but a family in from Donegal, and I spoke to them in the pre-show, and I had a pint with them, and that always gets me then when I'm talking about it, and they start cheering out when I say Donegal, and it's the pride as well that we have for our fellow Donegalians.
And is it a tool as well too, as part of the show though, because you talk about unpacking what it is to be a man and what have you, maybe talking about how you're feeling, talking about maybe a vulnerability or an emotion, it's not just tagged on at the end for the crack. It forms part of the wider meaning of the program, I'd presume, or the show. Sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a lot of people come for, I think, what they see in the reviews or on social media is the party and the fun and the beer and all that. There was one gentleman who came in who had never seen a show before. He was in the 60s. His daughter dragged him along. He's like, this is my first theatre show I've ever seen. And sure, they're coming for the beer, but then he said he had a cry when there's a moment when we sing the song Dance with My Father, and we speak about, family and friends and stuff like that, and that got to him. So if we're the door that opens people to theatre, how amazing is that?
I mean, who's to say? Maybe it was the first time his daughter had seen him express his emotions in that way. Who's to say? We don't know. And how long now will this run of the Choir of Man be? And are you working on anything else in tandem with this, Dennis? Or does this take up so much of your time?
So I'm with this show now. I've signed on. I'll be with it till the start of February. It is booking until May. But the show just keeps going with different iterations through the years. I've been in with it kind of since we started back in Edinburgh Fringe, 5 years now, on and off. So I'll always be jumping in and out of it, but I'll be with it until the start of February. Other than that, I worked on a project actually I'd love to do a shout out for. It's called Fairview Park. I did it with it's a British film funded short film that's will be coming out in the festivals this year. Tells the story of Declan Flynn, the man who was murdered in Ireland in Fairview Park and was seen as the catalyst for the gay civil rights movement in Ireland. So it was a really important and beautiful project, and I got to meet his family. So that should be coming out. So
I'd like to speak to you maybe about that separately when we have more time.
If
that's all right.
When we get it out and released, it was really great experience.
All right, listen, great stuff. Thank you so much, and continued success in your career, and obviously continue flying the flag for us here in Donegal. Take care of yourself. Thank you. Bye-bye. Dennis Grindle there, West End actor. All right, that's the first show of 2023 in the bag. Thank you so much to all of you who listened, watched, took part. We're back with you.